All right. All right. Who are you people? Why are you in my house? What's going on, everybody? There's strangers in my house. What's going on? We're going to kick it open a little bit early. I got a couple things to talk about before we get painting. It is Tuesday. I always feel bad because we run a little bit late into like Kenny's stream, so we're going to try to finish it up on time today. See if we can make all this stuff happen. Ray Silver says the soap came in and he loves me. I think he means he loves Jen, but that's all right. I'll take it. I'm glad you got your soap. Spiky Bits with the host. Big man Rob, what's happening? The missus got discharged. We heard about that, Ray. That's awesome. That's awesome. Big Bob, what's going on? Maui Blood, what's happening? Silvernail, what's going on? Silvernail, don't eat the soap. Don't eat the soap. I didn't put don't eat the soap on the label because I figured we were all beyond that. Don't eat the soap. And don't try to get drunk on the soap even though it says drunken. Don't. You might get the super poops. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Love Minis, what's happening? Ganozel, I see you out there. Kev Rob, what's happening? You were supposed to dip everything in mahogany. That's the rule. Make it happen. Well, okay, maybe not everything. Don't dip anything in the mahogany that might make the mahogany bad. So don't do that. If I didn't leave the door open and donuts out, trust me, sir, there are never extra donuts here. Anthony Alone, what's going on? Azabans, hello, hello. Armin's, what's going on? Dad told you to say you've created a monster, whatever that means. I assume this is not Armin's wrath. I assume this is Armin's daughter rather than Armin's wrath. I haven't created a monster. He told me you were mixing paints until like wee hours of the morning.
Well,
that's
huzzah,
awesome.
huzzah.
We love it.
I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
JP Gray, both my hips work. I can run faster than you. Do you want me to quit now? What's going on? Kenny, Kenny bringing the D. What's up with that? Kenny's compensating, by the way, if you look at that post. I think maybe half an equal sign would have worked there. Ravenous, what's going on? What is happening? Houdini, I see you out there. Your cat loved the brown packing paper? I love the brown packing paper, right? I hate bubble wrap. Jen loves bubble wrap. I love the brown packing paper. Spiky Bits got the super poops. He knows what I'm talking about. He can't eat bread. Feed Spiky Bits bread in his sleep. He gets the poops. That's how it works. Like a circus trick. Nice, Ganozel. He told you to practice with the apple barrel stuff. Yeah, you know what? It's like I was telling him, and I hope he was passing that on to you, is that even the cheaper craft paints, they're not good paints. The pigment they use is not good. It's not good for smooth painting on small surfaces like we do in miniature, but it is great for practicing mixing and for getting your confidence with, you know, getting in like with color. And oh, I'm sorry, Kenny. That was a 1-to-1 post. Sorry. That scale is 1-to-1. 3/4 of an inch is all I'm packing. But yeah, the apple barrel stuff, I don't like it as a paint. It's great for using on terrain and things like larger, rough surfaces where you're not worried about whether or not pigment has texture and how thick it is and how it doesn't really thin that well. But for color and hue and practicing with mixing like what we were doing on stream the other night, it's fantastic because it's a great way to get into a lot of colors inexpensively and then play around before you go spend money on, you know, more expensive hobby paints and, you know, maybe buy a bunch that you never find yourself using because you'll wind up mixing and all that.
I'll just throw back my legs and pollute
Glad
my
you're getting into
britches
it.
with delight.
Do I have a video on glazing or shading? We will. We're working on all of that stuff right now. There's a bunch of stuff over on YouTube, but it's all just reposts of our Twitch streams. So, and then of course there's a running like 90 days of Twitch streams in our video section here on Twitch. So you can always click on that and go back and watch. I do this same style of painting every single day, so you can catch up on that. But we will be doing focused tutorial type videos that you'll be located over on slowfusgaming.com coming up soonish. Soon-ish. Ganozel with 9 months. What do we name it? What do we? I can't afford all this child support. You guys. Keyline with the host as well. You guys, I can't afford all this child support. All these stream babies. Armin's Wrath. I don't know anything about glazing. That's Armin's daughter. I don't even know what glazing means, man. We just have a emote. We made an emote to make us look smarter. Only dry brushing here. If you came for anything else, you're going to be completely disturbed. Only dry brushing. That's a lie if you're new here. Kitten Mancy, what's happening? Evan Flo, good to see you. BVC, I see you out there. Juan Jose, too many threes in your names. I don't know what that means. What's going on? Drider, welcome back. Will we be doing whip? Yeah, on Tuesdays, on any day other than Friday, we do take a look at whip. We generally look at it at the end. When we're doing our paint-along series, be aware that when we look at whip, we always focus on the paint-along miniatures first, and then when we have time, we'll look at everybody else's stuff too. But feel free, post it up there. Post it up. We will try to look at everything. We just want to make sure we get in enough of the paint-along stuff going. We might maybe paint on Thursday during our after-hours thing too, but I don't know if that's fair to the people doing the paint-along to do the Thursday after-hours because they don't expect it. It'll be kind of like the Spanish Inquisition again. Anthony Lone. Should hear some of his D&D games? Your dad's? Your dad's a nerd? What? And we let him in here? What? Jen is out of town. She said hi to everybody. She said hi. We've got a couple things I want to talk about. We'll be painting the Buzinbo. That's our paint-along miniature, so hopefully everybody's got him built to some form of ready to go and primed in black. So that's where we're going to be starting from. That is the wonderful GCT Studios, Bushido the game. We got racks will be going out. All the orders will be starting to be filled. We got stuff shrink wrapped and first shippings going out tomorrow. Hopefully all shippings of back-ordered racks will be going out tomorrow. All the pre-order, not really back-order, pre-order stuff. Hopefully all of it mailed tomorrow. We're a little behind. I know we said we were going to try to start doing that on Friday. We didn't get the racks until Monday. Some on Friday, the rest yesterday, and then the printing for the instructions just this morning. Everything's been hung up. Like everybody, for some reason, run about 24 hours behind, which puts us about 36 hours behind. But I wanted to show you guys on the instructions. We had gotten a bunch of good feedback from the people that had already bought some of the dropper bottle racks. Our initial stab at instructions were really built around kind of that real simplified IKEA stick figure, no words, arrows, and colors kind of thing. And a lot of people still were having trouble with it. So we went with words. So we have words and my beautiful hands. I'm a hand model, by the way. So my beautiful hands putting together racks. So hopefully this will work better for everybody. These will be going, depending on what you order, you'll get the instruction package along with your shipping stuff. So don't throw out the paper when you open the box. And you'll be getting all your stuff soon. Trademark. You've only heard, Azbans, you only heard of Jen? You never seen her? Was she here on Friday? You weren't here on Friday? Jen is always here on Friday. Unless she isn't, but most times she is. Right? And not so much during the week anymore. And we are going to be starting up a Jen Paint Day that will be more of a consistent watch Jen Paint Day. That's on the table. So we got a lot of new stuff coming up schedule-wise. Well, not a lot of new stuff, but we got some schedule stuff coming up that I think will be interesting for you guys. Should be fun. That too, Ebb and Flow. I'm also a ham model. Ham. So if you have ham you're trying to advertise, I might just be your guy. Sabbath, what's going on? Eavesdropping? Dropping eaves, Evan Flo says. Eavesdropping on a D&D session is foul play? I don't think that's true. I always leave the door cracked and listen to nerds when they're playing their games. Ganozel, I only base coat wash dry brush with Citadel colors. Oh man, why you gotta blow me up like before I even start painting? Like at least give people a chance to say whether or not they like it on their own. This is probably the day where there's a lot of new people hanging out, lurking right at the beginning of the stream, and everybody was joking about like how bad I am at painting. And they're all like, why am I hanging out here? Out of here. Nice, Sabbath, doing some Infinity. Yep, exclamation point whip like Mustang Palmer just hit, and you too can post your work up. Remember, it is a paint-along this week, so we will be working on the Bushido Paint-along, the Buzinbo model. He is a bird samurai. So this is what we doing. Oh, this is what we doing? Yeah, this is what we doing. So we're going to be working on this bird samurai all week. We're going to be showing people the techniques that we'll use to get the colors on him. If you type !Paint-along, all one word, in chat, it will give you the link over to slowfusegaming.com where this guy used to be for sale. There aren't any left, I don't think. So you can't buy him anymore, but you can see the reference list of paints in the model description down below over on the site. And so if you're interested in, maybe you didn't get a hold of the model, didn't get a chance to buy one before we started, but you've got a similar model, something that, you know, doesn't even have to be samurai, maybe you're painting infinity models, but you just want to be able to follow along, do the same kind of techniques, feel free. Obviously, this is open to everybody and anybody. If you are out there working on something else, you're painting along with us, just trying to learn the techniques, when you drop it over in Whip, make sure you put a note in the bottom of your picture saying, hey, following along with your techniques during the paint-along, different model, how do you think it looks? Stuff like that, all right? For everybody else that did get their hands on the Guzimbo, we got about 20 of them out there, I think. So hopefully we got 20 viewers. I know a couple of viewers had to back out because they got called into work. So some people traveling that they didn't expect. So I know we lost a couple of people that way. But hopefully we got, 15, 18 of you guys out there painting this thing. It's going to be awesome. One of the biggest things doing the paint-along for me as the instructor type is always seeing what you guys come up with using the techniques that we're doing, whether you change up the colors, whether you bought the colors straight off of the color list, or using something similar out of your own stockpile. Don't worry so much about color, worry more about the technique that we're going to be teaching you to get color onto the model. So if your blues don't match exactly or your grays aren't exactly the same, that's not the key. I'm not trying to create a situation where your model looks just like mine. I'm trying to create a situation where you build your confidence level with working with soft brush strokes, thin paint, layering, blending, highlighting, all of the tonal and value that goes on a model, as well as hue. So you could wind up seeing guys and girls painting this thing in the Whip that is totally different colors, and I completely applaud that. I only put up our color list as a reference for what I'll be doing. We are using the box art for this guy as kind of a, I guess what you would call a guideline. We don't always, that's not the right one. Why is that doing that? Hang on, that's chat. Why is that there? I feel like that's not what that's supposed to be. Let's make it this right here. We'll make it deep bot for a second, and then we'll make it that, and then we'll make it like that. There we go. All right. So this is the box art from GCT Studios. Their studio artist did this, and we're going to be following some of this color scheme. We're changing it up a little bit. We're going to be doing the padded armor underneath, the solid armor plating in a blue, but we have added some purple into it for shading. I want to also be doing his skin, his facial skin, his hair in a blue. And bluish grays, kind of space wolf gray kind of colors. And I feel like in this box art, those two are a little too close. You know, the padded armor and the skin and the hair both have that light tinge of blue to them, and they kind of fall into one another. So we're going to be changing that up just a little bit. I do really like the blue, so we're going to work with that. We're going to be doing the non-metallic gold armor on him. We will be switching some of that up. In the case of basically, you aren't going to get to see my arrow. But the thigh plates and the front tabard area, we're going to be extending that kind of red armor that you see on his ribs down into the thighs for portions of that with the gold metallic highlights. And then the chest armor will be gold, things like that. So we're going to be doing a little bit of alteration. We're also altering the wings a little bit. We'll be doing working from inside out like we normally do, deepest parts of the model first. So wings will be last. But today we're going to be starting to work on the padded armor, working with those blues. We'll be also basing for the reds on the red parts of the armor, and skin and hair. So mostly in blues and reds today. We're going to get all that low stuff finished, and then that way we can move off into the non-metallic gold work starting tomorrow. Awesome! I can send humor for Mustang too. Well, see, I haven't ever gone and bought that stuff, so I said it. You guys want it, you don't get it, right? You're hoping he gets an intestinal disease while he's away. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't wish those things on people. Streak 10, what's going on? What is happening, man? Good to see you. Ebb and flow, between the two streams, you've seen more technique than you can keep up with your practical application of this hobby. You just need to paint more, man. You gotta paint more. Ray Silver's ready to screw his model up and cry about it. Hashtag, we're ready for you, Ray. We got this. What the what? Where's this color list, Saldoc? Saldoc, type in !Paint-along in the chat if somebody didn't do it already. And over at slowfusegaming.com, or just go to slowfusegaming.com, go into the miniatures section of the store, and in there you'll see the Bushido Paint-along. Click on it. In the description for the model are all of the colors we're going to be using. The manufacturers for those colors, everything. We're using Vallejo, Army Painter, the standard deal. So you can see that color list. And I always do that for the paint-alongs, list the colors that I plan to use by manufacturer. I do think it out ahead of time. We try to stick to it as much as possible. Generally, we add colors. We don't ever take colors away from that list. But there may be times where I'm like, let's add another color. So, but that's always up there. Shrink10, give a big thank you to you for helping us hit that 200 likes button. Nice. Nice. That's awesome, man. Glad to help. Grins, what's happening? Greenleaf, what's going on, man? Welcome back. Hair and pin feathers? What? He's a bird. He's got hair. He's got feathers. And Ray, can you give us a drunken brush cleaning demo at the end? Yeah, sure. Remind me, though. Right? He wanted you to get bit by a shark or stung by a jellyfish, Big Bob? I feel like you guys aren't friends. I feel like people don't really do this to their friends. JDA, what's going on? I think I said hi to you, Viking. If I didn't, hi, Viking. What's happening, man? And Bull, what's happening, man? Drider's edging vehicles. There you go. Such bore. Mini Z's. Yeah, when you're doing a lot of vehicles, that can be one of those things where it like tries your painting patience to its fullest, I think. Right? At least for me. It's not always. Oh, God. I don't know what I just did. I'm hoping that wasn't a thing. I think I just hit record on the camera. Oh, fumble fingers. All right, so first and foremost, let's get this thing set up. Let's get our paints out. The first thing, like I said, we're going to start working with are the blues. So deep blue, if you go by our list, the way that we're going to be running the blue fabric armor on him, the padded armor, is deep blue as our base, Viking blue as our first highlight, troglodyte blue, as our upper highlight, and in between all that, we're going to go in with royal purple from Game Color, and we're going to kind of dump right there, royal purple. And we'll be glazing the royal purple in after, maybe kind of there, actually. I think we'll probably go there. So, we'll figure it out. All right, so them's the colors. Let's get going. Start with the deep blue, nice dark blue. And we are going to work it up to a nice thin consistency. Let's bring out the palette paper again so that we can show you what we're doing here as far as, let's see if it works just on the palette cam. I feel like the palette cam always makes it look a little far away when I'm trying to do this stuff. That's not too bad. We'll do it right here. So first off, let's show you what I mean for those of you that maybe this is your first paint along. Maybe you don't see me doing this very often. All right. First thing we're going to do is kind of just show you what I mean when I say thin, okay? You may travel around the internet, YouTube videos, this, that, and the other, and a lot of people talk about painting thin, layering, things like that. I like to show you guys, we generally show about once a week, twice a week, however many times a week it takes, right? I am Nurgle, what's going on? And show everybody exactly what we mean, because you'll hear me use those terms. Hey, we're going to be painting at our normal thinness. We're going to be painting thinner than normal. We're going to be going ultra thin. We're going to be going less thin. I base it all off of a central point. And so what I really need to do is get that central point across to everyone so that you know what I'm using as my basis for my 90% paint technique, okay? So my 90% is I'll take the drop of paint and I will draw out of my brush, right? I will put my water here, right? So I've got my murky water here. I will clean my brush if I need to. I'll just clean it up against the side, lightly rubbing it on the side here. And then I bring it straight out of the water, all right? I don't wipe it on the side of the can. I don't, you know, squeegee it across the top. I don't let any of that water exit the brush. So after I've cleaned it, I literally just pull it right up out of here. It's got a big load of water on the bristles. See how shiny that is? That's the way you want it. Now I'm going to take that straight over to my droplet of paint, and I'm going to touch the droplet of paint right on the side, right? Very inappropriately right on the side. And I'm going to pull out a tail of paint. Just keep, you know, kind of, and I'm literally, the edge of the brush is barely hitting the side of the paint drop. And because of that kind of osmosis, I don't know if that's technically osmosis, I think that's technically through a membrane, but we're going to use that word. It's drawing the paint out into the water, okay? And so now I've got a thinner version of the paint out here, right? It's lighter, it's more see-through, okay? I'm going to pull this out here on the regular camera. I feel like the palette cam doesn't tell a good enough story. All right. Turn that one off so it's not as annoying. All right, so I've got this pile of paint out here that is mostly water. And we talk a lot on the channel about painting with dirty water. And that's really what we're going for here. Notice how what I'll do is come down, grab enough paint, right, get it thin. Now it's kind of floating in this solution down here. And then I will push it side to side. And you'll see how translucent it is through here. The tail of paint, we call this. So I push the paint to one side, lift the brush up, and I want to look at the consistency of the drop that's left. I look behind it, and I say, okay, that's good transparency on the tail behind it. It's fairly equal. It's not super cloudy, right? And that the droplet of paint left at the end stays fairly coherent for like a 3 count at the end. Right, so if I go like this and I lift my brush, I'm like 1001, 1002, 1003, and my droplet is still fairly okay. So this is pretty good, right? Now, what you want to look for is, does this droplet just immediately wash back into all the paint and not stay coherent, right? I want to see this circle. It will expand and get a little bigger. There's a lot of water here. But you want to have it stay at least circular and be more opaque like it is right here, and translucence behind it. Kind of making a comet of paint, if you think of it like that. Right, so you got the comet trail and you got the head up here being a little bit more opaque. And as long as it stays that way, you're pretty good. So this is a really good consistency for the way I paint 9 times out of 10. Right, now, if I add more water to my brush, don't grab more paint, just go straight in here and thin it out even more. What you'll start seeing is that as I push it to the side, this circle starts bleeding back in a lot quicker. Right? So if I'm going for something, when I say, hey, we're going to go really, really thin here, just dirty water glaze, then this is what I'm talking about. Because notice how I'll push it all the way to the side. Very, very little pigment left behind at all. Notice how now it's not really even translucent anymore. It's really verging on complete transparency. And the droplet at the head, when I move, starts expanding back into that pretty quick. So this would be a lot thinner for just a slight filter. I won't get near as much blue when I'm painting this, but the base color will show through tremendously. So that's the reasoning here, right? I'm always wanting the color I painted before to show through. It's just how much of it do I want to see. So if I paint a red and then I want to glaze blue over the red, how much red do I want to see, all right? That's kind of the gig here. So those are the normal and then the thinner, and then you just keep getting your brush wet, pulling more paint down into the tail as it dries up on your palette. You can always just test it and say, okay, I'm moving my dot of paint around, it's working good, right? If I want it to be thicker for some reason, maybe I'm doing highlight, that I really want that highlight to just stick it really good, then I'll pull down even more paint, and when I move it from side to side, now you'll just see there's a general opacity increase across the entire trail of paint, as well as now this almost doesn't expand at all when I'm done. All right, so I'm using some form of this in 99.9% of my painting. Every now and then, when I want to like put a gleam in an eye, or if I'm doing non-metallic metal and I want to get that real bright saturation of white or ivory at the end, I'll come and I'll just take the wet brush and go right into the paint and go to the model. But that is literally the least of what I ever do. All right, you won't hardly ever see me take a brush into the drop of paint and then go paint the model with this, loaded like this, because it's just too opaque. Right? And believe it or not, that right there is too opaque for me to paint with on a consistent basis. It'll get more texture in it. It has more of an abrupt quality on the model. So what I go for is much, much thinner than what you're used to. And so when you're watching me paint, a lot of times you're going to have to start getting comfortable with that kind of thinness. Now, be careful, because if you over thin, right? If you get it to where it's just clear and just a little bit of pigment on your palette, then when you go to the model, you're not gonna see a lot of color. And if you keep building up with that thinness, eventually it's going to break. It'll leave cracks in the paint because it's all water. When it evaporates, there's no paint left. So you're gonna have to be a little cognizant of that, and you know, at this point, kind of go dead in the middle if you can, right? Ready to roll. Happy Tuesday to you. What's happening? What lies has your daughter been telling about you? Only the real ones. Maui Blood, what size wick are we starting with? I am starting out with what I believe is a number 3, or no, this is my number 2. Just for basing, but I never say that there's a particular size brush you should be using. That's all feel, right? That's all what you like. So for me, a number 2 holds a lot of paint, so you don't find me painting with it a lot, but in this case, I'm going to, right? So just with our normal thickness or thinness, whatever you want to say, right? And get my glasses. Time for glasses. All right, so you're gonna get that deep blue. And now we're just going to randomly pick a spot on the model that has deep blue. The leggings are deep blue, so we'll start there. We're just looking to get that initial base coat filter laid down. Don't let it pool up. Notice with thin paint, you'll see a little bit of that pooling. The paint will be brighter wherever it does that. Kind of move it around with the brush until you don't get any buildup anywhere of too much paint. The first thing you should notice is that this is a whole lot darker blue than the deep blue is even out of the bottle. And that's the point. We base with a black primer for this specific reason, so that as we go through and layer this thin paint on here, a lot of that black remains showing through. All right? And the dogs begin barking. There are pleats in this padded armor that run vertically here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I leave those pleats not piled with paint. That first pass, you can afford to get some paint in them, but from then on out, I'm just kind of going to go to either side of those lines that are there. But on the brush question, I'm generally painting with a number 1 or a number 2. And a lot of times what I'll do, both to point the brush, if it gets a little frayed on the palette, is I'll come and rub it over here. But most times what I'm doing is I'm taking away a lot of the water that's on the brush, right? Because when you paint as thin as we do, you can build up too much material on your brush. And then when you touch the model, it unloads all of that all at once. And it can be, leave very big droplets of paint in places that then as you're trying to move them around on the model, start to get a little funky looking. They water stain or coffee staining, we call that a lot of times. So in order to avoid that, you just kind of use your thumb palette as a way to remove some of the material. I typically don't say use a paper towel because it will siphon off too much of the pigment. That's why I use my thumb. And remember that when you're working this thin, one of the biggest issues is going to be it needs to set up, meaning dry, cure, whatever you want to call it, before you go back after it. So notice how we painted this right leg, the one to our left over here first. We gave it a good coat of the thin paint. And then I went over here, and as I'm talking, you guys started painting the left leg with a coat. All right? Just keep alternating, because if you overwork an area with this thinness, right, with it being this light body of a paint, you'll break it, right? You'll start pushing it around. It's almost like the paint reactivates as soon as you hit it with a wet brush. So you've got to give it some time to cure. You'll see like Kenny when he's doing this with airbrushing, a lot of times he'll say he just does his air, paint, paint, paint. And a lot of times why we do the just air part of the airbrush is to make sure that we cure the paint, let it set up so that we can go back and add more without reactivating it. Because when you reactivate a paint before it's fully cured, it tends to move on the model in weird ways. And that's what we're trying to avoid, right? So here I'm not using an airbrush. We're not blowing on it. You just give it some time. It doesn't need a whole lot, right? Like this is already ready to be painted over again. And this is probably the 3rd or 4th layer that we're putting on the right leg. And you'll start seeing it start to build up to more of what the color of paint is out of the jar. Right? But still leaving these lines in between the pads in the armor, leaving those without paint in them. We gave it paint the first time, so there's a little bit of tint of blue in there, but now as we paint around it, it makes those lines really stand out in darkness, which is what we're going to be going for. But try to be careful not to get too much color in there. A little bit is okay. Keep working around the circumference of the leg. Making sure we get all of these details. I didn't do as good of a study on this model before starting to paint it. One of the things I always talk about is making sure you look at the model long enough to say, okay, I get it. He's got this. This is where this armor is. It goes all the way down his leg to his ankle, so on and so forth. This guy, I have not, because I don't know why. I love the model, and I just am like, I'm just ready to paint. So I just kind of jumped into it. But it's always good to kind of get an understanding of, okay, where are the colors that I'm going to be painting on this guy going to go, so you're not caught with your pants down right as you start and missing pieces of it and things like that. So. Notice how I am being fairly specific with my base coats here because of the pleats in the armor, so on and so forth, right? I'm not just slopping paint all over it. You know, sometimes with base coats we will, and on this model we will. There will be parts of the armor, like when we do the mahogany for the base for the reds here in a little bit, you know, you're gonna notice that I'm not as specific with my paint placement. You know, I'm a little more loose. I just kind of, I don't ever like to say I just slop the paint on, but you do. Sometimes you just kind of slop the paint on. You want it smooth. That's why I don't like that word slop, right? You still want to get a smooth coat on, but some cases you're not as specific as what we're being here. And generally all I'm really paying attention to here is that I'm not forcing a ton of paint up into these seams in the padded armor. That black line that goes right there has got one layer of blue paint in it, right? So we took it and ran the brush down it once, right? But we don't want to get it too bright. Otherwise we lose that shade. And so we're being more specific and making sure that we're just painting to either side the actual padded cloth. Bird butt. Bird butt. Nozzle, yeah, we always look at whip at the end. Remember that during our paint-alongs, like I said at the beginning of the stream, we generally focus on the guys and gals work who are doing the paint-along with us first. So as I do whip on Tuesday, some tomorrow as well, and then Friday we will be looking first and foremost at the people that are following along doing the paint-along, and then we'll go back and look at everybody else's as time allows. Nice, Grins. Yeah, definitely. That's what I was saying earlier, right? Is that you can basically, you know, just take the technique and don't worry that you may not have a Bushido model. This is not Bushido specific stuff. None of my techniques are really ever model specific techniques. That's not how we try to teach things here, right? What we try to focus on are techniques that this model may show off really well.
Cause and maybe it'll make you feel better.
Right? Big Bob with $10. My God, man, thank you. You know, that we're really just trying to show you what works for all models. Pick the color you want, pick the model you want, apply the technique, get good results. That's the key. That's really our goal around here. If the colors we're working with are colors that you're like, oh wow, I've been thinking about doing something like this, then that's all the better. You know, I think a lot of people will contact me behind the scenes, and I feel like they get a little too wrapped up in the colors I'm using instead of the technique itself. And I understand, you know, because if I'm using a yellow and then somebody says, you know, oh man, that looks so good, but I'm not trying to paint yellow, then they get hung up on what do I do if I want to do red? And you're like, well, it's the same exact thing, right? Because it really is. A lot of times the techniques are identical. I don't treat paints like they're any different from one another very often. There are some cases where you have a specific color that just works better with a particular technique that you wouldn't use for another. I can't really think of one off the top of my head, you know. But in general, all paints are going to work the same. So regardless if you're, you know, painting blue like we are right now, you wanted to do this with brown leather, the technique is exactly the same. Pick your dark color, run it really thin, base coat it, being as specific as you need to be for the details on the model as far as your placement goes. Letting some of that black show through so that it accents this, allows your shadows to really be deep where you need them to be. You'll notice I do very few layers as we go through the inside of the thigh here and up underneath the butt. Whereas everywhere else I'm doing 4, maybe 5 layers, or 3, 4, 5 layers depending, to get this blue to start popping and to sink like the black of the seams there further. But as I go up underneath here, crotchal regions, inside of the thigh, maybe 2 coats, because I don't want it to be as bright. And even though this is a shade color for the paint, still having it be darker in some areas and brighter in others makes real quick work for your highlights later on. All right, 6 months, Thaddeus. Holy hell, my friend. Thank you. Another month, another button to push. Thaddeus, you're a hero. Thank you, my friend. Longtime supporter of the stream. Been here longer than we've been having a sub button. Much appreciated. I don't think you guys could ever know how much that actually means, right? Choosing to spend your precious time with us is awesome. Alright, so that's about all we'll do, is about 2 coats up underneath there. And even though it may not look like a huge difference, later as we start applying brighter colors, it will definitely appear that it's darker in there for a reason. That's what we're trying to go for. So even with this first coat, you can still kind of take some of your light and dark into account. You don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, because again, this is the shadow layer. This is basically, you know, what we're going to see in the darkest recesses. So we don't have to be super concerned with it. And as you're learning, it's not the end of the world if you just go ahead and make this one consistent coat and everything that's blue is the same value of blue. You'll be fine with that right now. So if you feel like that's a little too much to think about as you're learning, don't worry about it. Just coat everything evenly with this, making sure that every aspect of the model, every detail that is intended to be blue has the same kind of, you know, coat and coverage all over the model. And then as you start expanding your capabilities, you'll find yourself during even your base coats like this, your shade base, you know, spending a little bit more time thinking about, okay, is this part of the thigh that I'm painting right now in light or in shade at the end of the model, like when I paint everything else, you know, and like something like this has this thigh plate over it. So I might look at this and say, I don't really need as many coats right here. It's going to be darker overall. I'm not going to highlight this as much through the course of painting this model. So then you'll be like, okay, so I can use fewer coats of this base coat. Bingo. It just starts clicking for you, right? The more you do it, the more it makes sense, the more it becomes repetitious, kind of like riding a bike, you know? It's just something you do. It just works. You get on the bike, you go. Eventually that's what happens. You just start base coating and you go, and then you move on to focusing on other things that are new to you. Good details on this model. All the Bushido models have great details. I think Uncle Touchy was here painting with us on Sunday, if you didn't notice. You didn't stop by, check out the VOD. We had a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us, those who did. And we hung out and he did the painting. I didn't paint. I built the other Bushido models for my my starter force for Tengu that we're going to be playing the game on Sunday, by the way. And as I was building, he made a good statement. He was like, these models, at first, as you're putting them, he hates metal models. Just, if he's not here, it's not talking bad about him. Uncle Touchy just does not appreciate white metal models at all. So he comes from a day and age where he's been doing plastic GW models forever and really doesn't see the need for metal at all. So I think his first inclination with every game we play that has metal models is, oh my God, I hate these. But, you know, just like he said with the Relic Blade models, he's like, man, these really are awesome. And he said with Bushido, he's like, you know, I didn't like them until I got my pre-highlights on them and the airbrush base coat, the primer and pre-highlight. And he said, and then when the details started popping out with the pre-highlight, he's like, ooh, these are nice. And they really are. They've got good, realistic depth to the details, but some of that you lose when you're just staring at, you know, a metal model, right? Because light details, light meaning, you know, shallow, still very good and realistic style details get lost in the shine of metal, and you just are like, yeah, it's kind of bland. Then you get detailing on it, you get a little frosting of a pre-highlight on there, and you're like, ooh. And I'm the same way. You know, looking at these models, it's like, wow, there's a lot of really cool stuff we can do with these. And as you walk along, if you're seeing any of the Bushido stuff that's interesting you, if you watch on Sunday, if you're waiting for us to play the game, see the rules in action, see if it might appeal to you further than just the models, I'm hoping it does. We've got the starter sets over in the store for all of the factions. The Tengu, the birds I'm doing, Uncle Touchy's doing the Ito clan, which has kind of a snake theme going on. So they've got a couple of dudes that have like cobra heads and things like that, and poison is their thing, and some really cool stuff. And all of them are over on the site, so you can pick up those starter sets if you want to get into the game. We only have a few of each. We're not trying to sell a ton of miniatures. We just wanted to make it easy for those of you that may not have this available at your local FLGS to be able to get your hands on it so that you can show friends and maybe get your FLGS to start carrying it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, because it's a good game. And no, we have no alliance with them as far as, like, we don't make anything if you start teaching people to play Bushido. So before anybody yells at me, we just love the game. All right, I feel like that's pretty good. Oh, inside of the left leg. As always, trying to be as careful as I can to not get a lot of blue on all the surrounding areas. It's inevitable that you will. That's why we paint inside out like we do. So if you get a little bit, if you're doing this with an airbrush, you get overspray on the outer areas, that's fine. You know, you just want to try your hardest to control your brush strokes so that you don't put a lot of paint on these surrounding areas. Straps, because of the way that we paint, painting thin, anything I get, like if I get a lot of blue on a leather strap there on his calf muscle, then as I go back and want to put brown on it for leather, let's say, then I got to try a little bit harder, you know, to get my first coat of brown to cover over a blue. Might not give me the best look in the world. It kind of goes without saying. I don't like to go back and correct things. It's frustrating for me. I'm just an old dog that way. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to have to go fix that. So anything you can do to limit your need to go back and like reprime an area or any of that, I'm a big fan of. So that's why you'll see me being really kind of specific and careful as I go through these back areas here. Again, I don't have to do near as many coats in that inner thigh, calf area, so I feel like that's pretty good. It gets a little bit darker in there. Just a good even coverage. You don't want it to be cloudy. You want the same level of blue. You want it to be even. I don't want to see brush strokes in it. I don't want to see dark spots and versus light spots unless there's something on the model that dictates that, like a shadow in between a fold. That's fine. but across like the evenness of the back of his ass or down the side of a leg or thigh where there's not a lot of ripples. This guy's got a lot of folds in it. But like across the back of his butt here, I don't want to see dark spots, light spots, dark spots, light spots. If you're seeing that cloudiness, chances are you're working too thin because you're so thin that you can't really control, right, the layering. And what you want is an even consistency of paint that lets the paint below it show through consistently as well. So if I make a brush stroke of blue across the black, I want to see that kind of grayish blue, deep grayish blue where the black is showing through evenly across that entire brush stroke. That's what you're looking for. So that's where the practice part comes in, making sure that you're not over-thinning your paint. When you over-thin, most of the pigment unloads as you stop your stroke, so you'll find more of the black showing until you stop the stroke and lift the brush, and then there'll be a lot of blue. Then you try to go back and feather that the other way, and you're always fighting it. You're always pushing most of your pigment around. You want to get that nice kind of middle ground where your pigment layers very smoothly, and as you lift your brush at the end, you're lifting it very smoothly off of the model. So again, a lot of times we talk about I have a very light hand when I paint, meaning that when I go to touch the model the first time. Inferno Gamer, what is going on? Thank you so much for that follow. As soon as I put the brush to the model the first time, I'm basically trying to hit it with the side of my brush as much as I can so that I get a line of paint, right? It doesn't have a lot of pressure right at the beginning. Ray Silver with the 10 bucks. Thank you, my friend.
The laughs, the life lessons. It's a genuine pleasure to watch and support whenever we can.
Dude, that means the world, Ray. You guys are awesome. So if you know, a lot of people paint like this. They go in and they just kind of put the brush on the model and then they pull a deal. And so they'll hit the model with the brush and then they'll pull a line. And sometimes you'll get more paint here at the beginning of your stroke because you're unloading too much paint with that pressure right there, and then you are thinning it out as you go along because you're lifting the brush as you pull. So you'll get this kind of dagger shaped thing that has a blotch of paint at the beginning and a dagger here, and then you'll find yourself going back and trying to smooth out that big blotch of paint at the beginning, and that's where you get those brush strokes and that unevenness. So when you hear me say I have a light hand, it's because I come into every stroke and I try to just get it with the side of the brush if I can, and then just pull evenly and then lift up very evenly at the end just so it barely sees the brush leaving. You'll always have the paint kind of point to the end if you're painting with a pointed brush, right, with a good tip on it. So it'll always kind of needle at the end, but this will prevent you from having to go back and recorrect that. So you can use the side of the brush, you can do one stroke and then a little lower, do another one, and then a little lower, and do another one, and a little lower, do another one, and so on and so forth. And all of those tend to blend together a lot easier than if you're jamming the brush in and kind of making hard strokes. I call this fast and loose, right? Whenever you hear me saying do loose brush strokes, then generally what I'm doing there is I'm kind of hitting the model, right? And I'm just kind of doing this. And I want to see that texture. I do that on leather, I do that on a lot of fabric, I do it on stone, anywhere where I want to see irregularities in color. But when you're doing it on your base coats, generally that's not where you want to see that. It's more as you move into your highlights. So just even strokes, practice. Practice with the weight of your hand to the model, and that'll help a lot. Uber Holtz, what's going on? Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome, everybody. Wasteland soil seems to be the best with glazing than anything else, Ray. Well, wasteland soil is a great color for that. But I don't find that there are a whole lot of colors that are real different. I mean, you get used to it. You'll notice as you start putting a paint out on the palette if you think it needs more or less water, or more or less glazing medium, things like that. Megatron, you got your soap and you want to eat it. Everybody says they've tasted it. It tastes horrible. Don't do that. 502, have I played Ronin? Doesn't sound familiar to me. Is it a miniature game or a video game? Big Bob, no appreciating. Nope, no appreciating. Oh, is the bot slacking? Hang on, let me check. Let me check.
Hey, somebody likes us.
No. It's still 35, but I don't see anybody whose points are wrong. Are you thinking your points are wrong? Let me know. Logistics3, thank you so much for the follow. It's a miniature game, Bull? No, I haven't seen it, Ronan. I haven't. Big Bob, I don't see anything here. It shows yours, but you're at 15. Unless I'm missing something. No, you're not supposed to taste the soap. Damn it! Silvernail was eating soap earlier. You're not supposed to eat the soap. I mean, you guys do you, but I wouldn't eat the soap. Me personally. Logistics, nice! Freaking awesome, man. Logistics is saying that almost a year ago, and he won a Troll Axer from one of our raffles, and all he knew was playing 40k at the time, and now he has a full Legion army and playing Malifaux and Guild Ball 2. Holy hell, awesome stuff, man. I'm glad you're reaching out and playing more, man. There's so many good games out there. So many great ways to have fun. Try not to get stuck into just one. Although, there is the whole it all costs money part, so... Only eat the soap if you have a foul mouth, as a band. Yeah, I think you meant to say soap. You said soup, but I'll go with soap is what you meant. All right, let's do the upper body now. Again, same blue. We want to get all of these areas. So up top, his arms have got that same padded armor on them. It has now the seams in the pad go horizontal across some of these areas. So just make sure you pay attention to that. Don't put more than one layer of paint into the seams, right? It's okay to have them be a little tint of blue, but we don't want to overdo it. This area as it comes out of the underarm onto the ribs is exposed with a little bit of the armor. This is one of those areas under the arm here where I'm always thinking like, okay, there's not going to be a whole lot of highlighting down here, so I'm going to want it darker, so probably don't layer as much of this dark blue down here, just so that makes it set up easier as we go through our lighter colors to drop that shade. Areas in between all these straps. The sleeve goes all the way out to the forearm. On mine, the straps are a little shallow on the sculpt. So if yours is the same, make sure that you're paying attention for them, because right here on the inside of the forearm, I don't know if you guys can tell, there are straps in here, right? But the sculpt, notice how, yeah, see how like on this one up here, notice how there's not much transition. So always be looking for that, right? This one, well, let's look down here. Like these, you can see a shadow from the physical sculpt, right? Casting a shadow so it separates how those straps are versus the fabric. But notice how up here, we lose that. The sculpt is just a little bit shallow up here, whether that's because of the mold or because of the way the sculpt was, we don't know. We don't care, we just gotta fix it with a brush, right? So we just want to make sure we don't cover that in blue. You got to keep that defined on your own. And in some cases, you will be like, oh, there's nothing there, and paint it blue. And then later on find out, oh, crap, that was supposed to have a strap there. So just be aware of that stuff as you're moving along with the brush. Make your life a little bit easier down the road if you pay little attention now. Saves a lot of frustration later kind of thing. I'm always looking at the surface, trying to figure out what stuff is. If I don't know, maybe it's a new model to me. I don't know what, armor is doing. Maybe there's some crazy scroll work on a model you're doing for the first time. Just always paying a little bit of attention to the model as you move along its surface will help you drastically be thinking about what exactly is this that I'm painting. We paint a lot of thingamajigs around here is what I'm saying. Like, I'll be like, so whatever this thingamajig is, we probably don't want to paint that blue. Or in a case like this, I know what it is. It's the strap for the forearm armor. It's not sculpted very well, though. It didn't hold its dimension in the mold very well, so we gotta guide it a little bit and make sure that we keep those black strap areas defined so I can see what I'm doing later on. like he's got a armored cover on the top of his hand, and I can't tell if that's cloth. I feel like it's got gold that comes out from underneath the cloth. So we've got this blue cuff to his sleeve that divides the armor plate on the back of the arm from the armor piece that covers the back of the hand. That's what I'm going to assume that is. Feel like his shoulder, yep, this is his shoulder we're seeing back here. I can see the pleats and the padded armor. Again, we want to get there, and then it has a puff here and a very faint line in the sculpt where I'm believing, well, no, I can't say that. Again, it's one of those where we got to look at it because I think that this is all padded cloth armor here, and we're not seeing as much of the quote-unquote cummerbund of red leather that is there. I don't think that's really a cummerbund. I don't know what that's really called, but we're going to call it cummerbund because that's what it relates to as far as I'm looking at it right now. This thing that comes around underneath the chest plate will be red leather, but it doesn't really have anything that defines it in the sculpt. Oh, it does kind of. Here it does, right? So here we can see it. So all of this will be red underneath, and everything up above is blue. So all of this will remain blue padded armor up here. Always moving the model so I can get the right lane of attack with the brush, so I'm not slopping paint over everything else like the wings and all that. Maybe you didn't put your wings on yet. That would be smart of you to paint the wings in a separate stage. For instructional purposes, I typically build models 100%, not only because I just like to have the model built and done, but because it allows me to then show everybody the relationship of various parts of the model, what shades what, why I'm painting, the colors I'm painting, things like that. So I tend to go ahead and build everything so that if I'm painting something dark or light and there's a piece, off screen that is forcing me to do that, that's a little bit harder to get across to everybody than to have it done like this. Makes it a little harder for me to get paint scooted underneath all these pieces, but at the end of the day, I think it helps in the long run. Good God, was that a Texas drawl or what? In the long run. Shoot, son. Funny, we have a lot of customers at the store that are from Texas. And so as I'm mailing their stuff out, I'm like, I know where this person lives. Like, not specifically know where they live, but I know the area of town because they're like places that I've been before in my life. So if you're from Texas and that scares you, it should. Be real careful around this arrow. The arrow is very, very thin, and it's a separate part on the model, so I don't want to put a lot of pressure this way and keep bending it in, because I feel like bending it out will break it. Going to fix it will break it. Houdini 7 did not attach his wings. Good on you. Do as I say, don't do as I do. It does make it a lot harder to paint the model when you have all the parts on it, for sure. Genuine, what the hell is going on, man? It is only Tuesday, though. You need to you need to consult your calendar again. Just saying. Genuine, he's always trying to convince us the world is flat and that for some reason he's a day ahead of us. I don't understand this guy. It didn't register. Your Friday donation is all. Did it not? Oh, it didn't. It got today's. All right, hang on. Hang on, we got you. Thanks for reminding me. You got to remind me, because if the bot misses it and a day passes, yeah, we're screwed. Big Bob, edit that user, make him silver. Congrats, and thank you so much for the support, my friend. Fixed. Fixed. Official Ray Long, what the hell is going on? You know how much I love a bad pun? A what? A pad bun? Huh? Ray Silver, your hope is pretty soon you're gonna pay online and then show up at the door with donuts and pick your shit up the next day. Genuine, if I actually could tell what time of the day it was and what time zones meant, then I feel like I would scare people away with the radiance of my knowledge. The reality is I'm just too old to have to remember certain things, and clock stuff and calendar stuff doesn't have a spot allotted in my brain pan anymore. Maybe there was a day once when that was a thing. Melonhead, do you know why the Swedish Navy has barcodes? So they can Scandinavian. We've heard this one and it never gets old.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Sev 7, 12 freaking months. What? What? Nobody likes me for 12 months, my friend. Like, Jen has to take breaks, right? Like every 8 or 8.5 months, she disappears for a while. Then she comes back, and it's like, I'm old and I've forgotten who she is. So it's like we meet all over again, and it works really well. So technically, once a year, we start dating again, kind of a thing, right? Don't tell her I said that. She'll get really mad. She'll be like, what? What? That's not how that works at all. You forget who I am? What? It's funny. Sometimes she'll leave real early in the morning to go to work or something like that if she's got to travel. And she'll come and I'll be passed the hell out, right? Just like drooling in my sleep, kind of passed out. And she'll like, you know, lean down to kiss me while I'm sitting in bed or while I'm laying in bed. And it'll just be one of those deals where I'm like, you know, I jerk awake. I'm like, ah, what? You know? And then I act like, who are you? Like, who is this person? What is going on? All right, I feel like maybe... I feel like we'll just keep going with that being padded armor. Who is this person? What are you doing here? But when she comes, I'm really like, as the more I sit here and talk about it, the more I realize that I'm probably not a really good person to live with. She'll come home at night and she'll be like, maybe she went to this store and she'll have like grocery bags or something. I see her out front and I'll just open the door as soon as I see her walking up to the door. I'll open the door at the front porch and I'll be like, we already got one. And I'll close the door and lock it, run away. I'm a horrible person. I'm a horrible person. Why do I do these things? And I wonder why she has a drawer full of scissors, right? Maybe I have to blame myself. Maybe it's time that I start realizing that I have a larger part to play in all this. Is that what we're coming up with here? I feel like maybe that's what we're coming up with here. Maybe that's the kind of, that's the nugget, the gold nugget from today's stream, is that we each play our own little part in our own demise. Ugh. Don't bob it, slow fuse. So good. Telemachus, yeah, the worst time trying to straighten that arrow out when the model arrived. Yeah, you know, I didn't realize it was separate. It's got his hand and then the arrow. I didn't realize that. Do I have blackout curtains in the paint room? Do I get lost in time? I took the green screen off of that wall. We have 3 green screen walls in here because we have 3 stream stations in here. And I took the green screen down, so now I can tell that it's actually a different time of day-ish. I am like a vampire, man. I just stay in this cave all day. I mean, I leave. I have to go to the post office every day to deliver orders and all that kind of stuff, so. It's a thing. It's a thing. Drider. I learned long ago. I'll give you a little secret. If you ever like, you know, because everybody needs to have like a release, I don't want to say like an anger release because I don't think everybody's like angry, right? But every now and then, like you've had a day and you just are like, you need to have a moment where you like go yell into a paper bag or something, like you just want to go in a closet and scream. I found long ago that one of the best ways to do that stuff is to find a way to make it funny, right? So if you've had a frustrating day and you need to have a throw a tantrum moment, do it in a funny way. Like tell your girlfriend you already got one and then lock the door and run away when she's coming to the house. Because then if she gets angry with you, at least you can say, I was just joking and trying to have a fun time, honey, I'm sorry. And it usually breaks both of you out of your bad mood. Or puts her in the bad mood and breaks you out of yours. I don't know. Maybe this is all really bad life suggestions here. Maybe you shouldn't rely on me on life choices. Maybe that's a thing. Every day is the worst day of your life. You release his ice cream? Rancid goat piss, that sounds like the best one yet. We know a place here in town that stuffs ice cream into a donut. If you give it the hard work and practice, I think you just may have a shot in the painting business. Remember the mantra, grease is the word. Snot Rash is just making shit up. Coming here and making words up. Ogre, what's going on? Working on one of your Plague Marines. Listen to me. It took you a while to figure out why you were needing so many coats to get paint down. You're working paint slow fuse thin. Uncle Touchy, you're a dumpster fire, is what we say. You're not a fiery wreck. It was dumpster fire was the words we used. And if that translates into dynamic entrance for you, well then, you know, you got to relate it however you can. Uncle Touchy, human dumpster fire. I need more blue on my palette, that's what I was doing. Bad life tips with slow fuse, right? I feel like I'd be really good at that. We should make that a segment. Bad life. I mean, we could do that, right? Because everybody's got times where they need some suggestions on how to get through something difficult, right? And I could be that opposite shoulder voice, right? Not the angel on the shoulder. Sometimes it sounds like an angel's voice because, you know, it's my voice, right? So I do sound like an angel. Here, let me sing you a lullaby. No, really. But you can imagine, right? Like, I feel like we could do this. We could be like life tips with slow fuse. Deep thoughts. Make it happen. Somebody make it happen. Call CBS, NBC, ABC. Let's make this happen. I need a morning show. Good God. Can you imagine what my life tips would be in the morning? I am so not a morning person. If they made me get up and like film a Today Show at like 6 or 5 or something like that, oh my God, I'd get fired in lawsuits quicker than you can imagine. I have that don't effing talk to me mentality in the morning. Seriously. Jen is the only one in forever that I can imagine that's been able to tame me with that. She can like wake me up in the morning and be like, hey, we got to go. Like now. There's a thing that we got to do, remember? And I'd be like, I would have killed anybody else already. But I love you, so yes, let's go do the thing that I can't remember I was supposed to do at 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I'm so horrible with that. The weird thing on my sculpt here that I don't know what it is. Doohickey. We're going to paint it blue because I don't know what it is. We're going to call it folds in the fabric. It may be like a piece of flash or something. I'm not real sure what that is. No idea what that is. Oh god, the whole back of the arm has to be blue. What? What? Again, this area back here will be something that is mostly in shadow at the end of the model. So paying attention to that, I'm not going to layer it up as much, not get it as bright. But still get a good even coat. Oh, and then a little bit up top. Trying very hard not to break these wings off. Dump one more coat on the padding at the top just to brighten it up a little bit versus everything else down low. More in here, the center section, really hard to get to, believe it or not, because of these arrows in his quiver belt. Got that angle that makes it hard to get the brush right there. Oh my god, that quiver is killing me, man. It's tearing my brush apart. There we go, a little bit better. All right. Little part down in his neckline. Just kind of review, make sure we've got spots that we didn't miss. Here in between the hair and the elbow pads, a little bit of peak there. Like the legs are good, feel like the arms are pretty good. We may miss some spots, we may have to come back and do it, but we never figure that out until we start doing highlights. It's just kind of the way the world works. Murphy's Law kicking in. All right. So hopefully you got a nice smooth base coat of the deep blue on there. We're going to transition over to Viking blue now. Little bit brighter than the deep blue we started with. Lots brighter. But again, because we're working thin, we'll allow some of that deeper blue to show through. And we're just going to start layering this on. Then we're going to retreat into some purples. So it's going to be a little bit funky how we do this. Normally, you could go in and you could do the purples and the shadows now, but I like to wait until I get at least my first layer of highlight done, sometimes my second layer of highlight, start seeing the values on the model so I can really push the purples specifically where I want them to go. As opposed to right now, you might put them on and then you put some highlights on and then you got to redo the purple and redo the highlights and you start going back and forth, which isn't bad. It's just for time savings, I try to do as much in find the sequence that makes you only have to do a thing once, if you can. Not always possible. Rolling dumpster fire. Downhill in a hurricane. How you doing today, Mike? How was game night last night? Did you play and win? Did you kick some butt? I never get to hear, so I assume he lost, but I don't know. Mike went to game night without me. I was too busy working. You looked at your mini building box and wondered why you have tweezers. Just built Malifaux Crew and Bingo. That's why they're there. Anthony, you always need tweezers when doing models. Silvernail, are your Walmart brushes worthy of the soap? They will clean any brush. They will not help you on your synthetics as far as like bringing them back to life the same way they will with a sable. Remember that as a synthetic brush starts to split at the tip, bend the point, things like that, they're much harder to bring back to a point than a sable hair. A synthetic is, I mean, think of it as a plastic brush, right? And so even if it's a blended kind of a brush, it will still have a problem with once it bends, it has a memory and it won't ever go back straight. But yeah. Yeah, if all your brushes are synthetic, what we're doing here, and we didn't say that at the top, but working thin won't work for you, right? So if you're doing what we're doing, trying it at home, and you're finding that you're struggling to ever make it work, you need to be doing this with some form of sable, at least a red sable brush. They make red sables fairly inexpensive. Synthetics just won't do it. Right? And that's just the nature of the beast, because the brush itself doesn't offload paint the same way that a natural hair brush does. And that's why they make both, right? A synthetic brush is great for specific things where you're just doing lining. You're not being, synthetics will hold a point really well. They don't load as much paint. They don't offload paint the same way that a natural hair brush does. They tend to dump the paint unevenly. That's just a function of synthetics. So they have very good uses as utility brushes for a lot of techniques. But things like this, where you're trying to layer thin, thin, over thin, over thin, synthetics will force you into a position where in order to get good, you'll pull all your hair out first, kind of a thing. So just be aware of that as you're going. You played Chris, he's a noob, played Nomads, pure kill match, played that tactical insertion list you talked about. Tactical insertion, limited insertion, just a 10-order list with 2 HMG Sukiels and a Macau rushing to the middle,
Well,
then going into
huzzah,
suppressive. He didn't have
I'll
the
just throw
visors
back
to
my
deal with
legs
them. Oh,
and
nice, so you
pollute my
won!
britches with delight.
Holy hell, Jack of Clubs, what's going on, Wyatt? 8 months for crying out loud, about to burst. What is happening, my man? Houdini also didn't put the quiver on. It's a javelin case. Yeah, for a normal model, this is basically like a javelin case. He's a big dude, considering that even the little man-sized birds, this is the normal human scale in this game. So the big dude that we're painting is quite a beast. His arrows are taller than the men in the game. Well, congratulations, Mike. Good game. Sounds like it went well for you. Jace Techlo, what's going on? Welcome. For Science, I see you hanging out there. What's going on? Oh, the Nova Cats are out today, huh? Oh, it is. It's Tuesday, huh? Oh, and the USA versus Japan robot fight is tonight? Yeah. I hope it's good. I feel like neither one of those things are really amazing, because we all have higher expectations, right? It's like we want mechs. I want real mechs. I don't want aggro mechs. I want plasma cannons, man. I want fights at thousands of yards and missile launchers. All right, so real thin with the Viking blue again. Make sure that you don't carry a lot on your brush. Offload as much as you can. And again, let's start down here at the knees. That's what we did last time. I'm going to start right here at the top of his right knee. I'm just going to kind of layer a little bit in on top. A little bit right down the inside of that fold and top of the knee again. Right. And remember, the key here is the thinness of the paint. Now, you hear me, I'm a broken record. I say this all the time. But you want that blue that you put down previously to show through, right? Why else would you paint it on there over the whole model? You know? And then you're going to cover it the most right here at the tip of the knee, right? You can layer up the brighter blue at the tip of the knee, but you want it to have this distinguishing feature where it kind of dips and dives, and you let a little bit more of the blue show up as you've got this shadow from the leg plate there, right? So it's a little bright, dim, dim, then bright at the knee where it finally pokes out from under the armor. So that's how we're going to start. Same thing over on the fold just to the other side. Remember, now we don't want to get any paint inside that crevice if we can avoid it. The seam in between the puffs of the padded armor here. And I'm going to layer up a little bit more right here in the center kind of area. Camera to show you exactly what I'm doing here. I want a little bit of brightness right here. like that. Not an edge highlight, necessarily, but it has kind of the same reaction. I want the center of this pad, because if you look at the sculpt, it pooches a little bit right here. It just kind of sticks up a little bit right there, so I can stand to have that be just a little bit brighter. And then there's that same pooch counter to it on this side, so I can stand to brighten this up just a hair over on this side. Like so. And remember, this isn't our last highlight, so you don't want to go crazy with this, but you want to set up enough of this color so that when we go with our next color of blue lighter, that we can start picking out the tops of folds and things like that. All right, so notice how you can still see the dark ripples in there. I'm basically just picking up the tops of some of these folds and leaving the darker shades in there to give the texture of the fabric a place to live, right? You see it up here. We've still got darkness underneath the folds, even with the base coat. We want to leave that as we go brighter. Again, don't carry a lot of water on the brush. As we go over the top of the knee, I just want to get it to where this blends a little bit and doesn't just sit here super bright on the top, but I'm not going to brighten up the bottom of the knee near as much. Maybe just this one layer of paint on there. Do the same thing over on this fold. And as we go underneath the knee, I'm basically just going to grab a little bit of this light blue on the top of any folds that I see in the sculpt. Right? See how there's this fold right here? I'm going to pick that up a little bit. Not as a line. I don't want to paint a line highlight. I want to blend it. So you'll notice how I'll go across the top of the fold, but I'll then take another couple of strokes off to the side just to kind of blend it into the darkness. So it's not just one big line highlight, but I retain that darkness underneath the fold. I catch it all around. I'm starting to build up that texture of all the various peaks and valleys in the cloth. Here. A little bit looser brush stroke than normal, just to get the tops of those. Start picking up that fabric feel. Fabric doesn't have edge highlights, right? Or it shouldn't, in my opinion. Hard surfaces get edge highlights. Everything else gets smooth blends in its highlights. If you find yourself edge highlighting fabric, at the end of the day, it may throw people off. Not that all fabrics are that true. You know, it's hard to have definites in this world of painting because it's art, right? So you can do whatever you want. But if you focus on like an armor plate and you do an edge, it's a nice crisp line and it tells a story. It shows, okay, there's a shine along the edge of that because it's a hard surface. Maybe it's metal, maybe it's, you know, really hardened leather. Doesn't matter. It's all going to give a different edge shine than other textures. And so for fabric doesn't do that. So you have to be real careful with how you blend your edges. You blend them too far, it makes all the fabric look like a different color, right? So there's the struggle that we run into. It's easier to just edge highlight because you're like, oh, but that makes sure that, you know, all of my color stays the way I want it. But it also doesn't make it look like fabric. So you've got this kind of catch-22. Edge highlights are the easiest way to drop highlight color on a thing, but it's the easiest way to ruin it looking like the texture that you really want it to look like. Fabric, metal, whatever. So being able to blend in those tight spots, right? I mean, we're talking about sometimes you're blending a color over a millimeter of space, right? Just to make sure that you get a little bit of transition from light to dark across these three folds on the side of the leg right there, right? You can still see my little ripple of light to dark because I'm really just pulling one paint line over and over again to brighten it up and then skipping it a little bit and then blending that up to the top point of this other fold so that you're getting those transitions, but none of them look like lines of highlight. And it really doesn't take near as much time as I make it seem like it does. For some reason, I'm still doing this with my number 2 brush. Normally, I would switch over to a little bit smaller brush for this, but the number 2's holding the point and doing well. I love my bomb wicks. Don't mean to rub it in for those of you that are waiting on them to come back in stock. Hopefully, we've got them soon. I keep saying that. See how this leg is starting to take on a little bit of life. That's only the first color, and we're still going to go back and interrupt a lot of this with purple. But look at the other knee, right? Standing in contrast with just our blue base coat, right? Which is nice and smooth, gives us some shadow. But now we start accentuating the high spots, and we have to start really paying attention to where we want shadows, right? On this other knee, the sculpt makes it easy for us. We want darkness underneath this part, right? So that's why we drop this highlight to about the peak of the knee, and then underneath it, just douse it. Don't leave a whole lot of the brighter blue. And when you go to your next highlight, you won't use hardly any down here. A little bit on the outside of this thigh here. Focus mainly on this bump in the fabric. A little fold right here, big one right here. We want to make sure we layer those up and get those two areas to be the brightest, and then blend out of those into our shadows, like I was saying. Just keep lightly hitting those two spots. And then out of those, just kind of lightly blend into the rest of the area. Because we're working thin, we can stand to like run a layer over the whole area to get that blend set up, and then just come back and focus specifically on where we want it brighter. There you go. But again, no edge highlight looking stuff, but we still have it picking up the light and dark where we need it to. Key here is just to not overtake. You hear me say this all the time. Don't overtake the color beneath the color you're painting. So in our case, the dark blue. Don't overtake it entirely unless you've just got a spot like the top of the knee here where you can kind of put more because you know it's going to be bright. But try to stay away from covering up all of your previous paint. Leave it so that you pick out some of those shadows, right? You get some depth in the model as opposed to having it look flat. When all you can see is one color, that's when I say something looks flat. Because it's very rare in the world that you will be walking around and see something that's just one tone, one value of one color. It's just not the way light works. You want to be able to pull in that depth through various changes in hue and tone and all the crazy art terms that we talk about. Scientific art. Who'd have thunk it? So we are kind of paneling out areas, so to speak, meaning that, you know, I'll take, like right here on the butt, I'll just kind of take and paint the inside of this quote-unquote panel and layer up where I want brighter and darker color to go, smooth it out, and leave, you know, this gap so that that fold in the butt stands out a little bit. And then you just determine how much you want it to stand out. You can either push more paint into it, around it. If you want it to be darker, I'll push more bright paint around it, and that'll make the fold in between the bright panels appear darker, or push more paint into it, make it appear lighter. So you get to just kind of control as you look at the model, as you see things forming, shapes, blends, change as you need to. That's why I'm always saying that this type of painting gives you almost complete control over what the end product is. Keeping these two panels a little brighter than this one that starts diving in underneath the quiver. And obviously all these areas over here underneath the quiver and underside of the thigh, only one coat max of this color, I think. And we'll take a look at it and see if that holds up. We may wind up putting two. But our initial thought is that, all right, most of this area is in shadow. I know I don't want more than one coat to start with of the brighter colors. Otherwise, I start pushing it too far up and I lose my shadow as I go up into the crotch and the butt. And later on, as I'm looking at the model, if I pick this angle and that spot on the thigh down there is just as bright as the spot on the butt, then I lose the dimension. It just makes his leg look short. I lose the depth as it goes up underneath. Yeah, Mike, there's some new people in the scene around here playing. I always like when fresh blood come around. We lose some of them sometimes. Hopefully you didn't scare them off. Ray, we're on Viking Blue now. Well, if you were here and listened to me talking about... this guy is probably closer to 54 millimeter. He's big though. Not all the Tengu are this size. We've got one that's a little bit bigger, somewhere in the 40, 38 millimeter range, right? And then we've got the small dudes, right? So their cast has got what appears to be a, and I haven't read this, so I don't know if this is true. Somebody can correct me, but it appears to be that, you know, the bigger the birds, the heavier warrior, you know, maybe longer they've been around kind of thing going on. Don't know. But yeah, Wyatt, we were talking about that, right? I feel like bipedal robots are a horrible design, right? It got us talking about mechanical engineering, structural engineering and stuff one day. That's just a horrible design, right? It's something that we fancy as human beings, right? It's why a bunch of our aliens and our fiction are all humanoid, because we fancy that we are the greatest design ever, and so other great alien species and things would definitely be patterned after us, right? And yet it's like, yeah, that's horrible from a design concept. You would not make a robot walk on two legs. You would build exactly what you just said. You'd build, like, if you needed legs at all for all terrain or whatever it was you wanted to do, you would build a spider tank, right? You would build something that, you know, didn't have to replace tracks on and treads on and things like that. If it needed legs, it could stabilize, but it'd have to have a lot of legs. Two ain't gonna cut it. Think about how much fun we get watching those videos where people try stupid stunts and eat shit, you know? Excuse my French. All the parkour guys that land on the wrong side of the building edge they were leaping for and stuff like that. Just imagine, right? If we made bipedal robots. All the trouble we'd be in. Again, just kind of blending the top peaks of all these folds as I come down the calf. Picking out the edges here on these harsh folds here, but making sure, again, that it doesn't just look like a line highlight. So if they are very thin folds, I gotta try to push color back into the shadow a little bit, not too much. Like I said, you don't want to overtake your shadows too much and lose them, because it's hard to find them again. You're gonna have to go back and like pin wash darkness on. So that's not what we're trying to do. Down here, we just want to pick out the very bottom edges, leaving enough landing space for our next color to go on if we need it. I feel like that's a mistake, but that's all right. dot on his heel ain't gonna kill us. With these folds up in here, I need to glaze just a little bit up in there so they don't appear so dark. Because if the fold looks really, really dark, like the shadows in between folds, like right here, right here, right here, if all that looks really, really dark right now, then when you put your next level highlight on this, it's going to look so dark it's going to be out of place, right? So just remember that as you go up through all your colors. If you're starting to see a tremendous amount of contrast at this stage, then you probably want to tone it back a little bit. Because we're still going to go with a brighter blue on all of this. Under here, we start getting the shadow of the butt cheeks on the thigh for a little bit, then I get a little bit brighter down here. Now I'm painting horizontally, side to side across this, because that's how this fold has been sculpted into the model. It's the way fabric would bunch along a cylinder like a leg, like we got going on here. Right, so I want to just keep bringing up the brightness horizontally as well. Again, making sure I push just enough into the folds to where they blend and don't look like edge highlights. I'm going to repeat myself a million times on that, because a lot of times I see people struggling with the deep, dark spots of a fold wind up being just way too dark. And it can be jarring sometimes. Now, like I said, back here, one layer is all I'm going to start with, because this area is going to be pretty much completely in shadow. We can treat it as such. Right? So like one layer should be enough to start telling the story, and you can start seeing how I'm driving shadow back in here, even though I'm keeping a little bit of the light color going too. Here, we did that one layer back in here, and I feel like that's just about right. That's pretty good. Pretty good setup on all of that. Let's get the front of these knees. Now his angle on his knee here, this knee kicks out a little bit, right? Notice how the model kicks this knee out a little bit so we can stand to be a little bit brighter through this area here on his right knee. His left knee is tucked up underneath, so we don't want to go as bright. We still obviously want to drop some paint in here. Arguably, the brightest spot will still be the top of the knee, but not as bright as the other leg. Because it has all this overhang of armor, tabard, all that. So still brighten it up, just not quite as much as the other one. Treat it kind of like the back of the thigh. You know, maybe 2 layers on these, as opposed to 4 or 5 on the other leg, and as opposed to 1 in the true shadows on the back of the thigh. Right? So more like this, where it's like, I'd call that 2 layers, maybe 2.5 now that we're hitting it a good time now. A little bit more dim than this. Up here we can do it the same, although there's not very much fold going on up here, so. Spot to kind of drop a focus in on there. Because I want to make sure that there's a little bit of shading to the sides of each of these panels. This thigh plate here and the tabard. I don't know if that's really a tabard, the crotch protector on the other side, right? You want to kind of brighten in the center a little bit, not too much, and then leave it dark as it goes up towards the belt line, as you can. Again, now the inside of the calf here is another one of those areas where one layer should do it. So don't attack it too heavy. Come in, get your one layer of brightness on all the peaks of the folds. And then leave it be. Should be plenty. Got a pretty good setup down low, and you can notice the huge difference it makes between that and like the sleeves that we're about to hit up high. Well, tease, is there any difference in the texture of the earth color brown and the ground texture granite? Which brands are we talking about? Earth color brown, the Vallejo brown texture, and the granite? Well, you'd have to ask me what you're asking brand-wise, old tease. Rathataz, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Kevrob, joints create weak points. Talking about the robot thing? Never mind the moron. The granite has grit, the brown does not. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. Camo Specs, what's happening, man? Oh God, did I say something that had the words next level in it? Next thing you know, I'll be saying spiky something and I'll get sued by both of them. Gotcha, old tease. Kevrob, where you're holding the wings, you're removing the primer. Yeah, it'll happen. It's all metal models, so you'll notice that, you know, that's why I tend to lay it on my finger like this. It's less of a deal than if you're trying to grip it tightly, but yeah, you'll rub primer off the edges of the wings, no matter how careful you are. Not the end of the world. We can fix it up on the edges when we need to, or paint right over it in some cases. All right, so here I'm going to start on the arms. Again, right here, more of a one-layer, two-layer area. So I just want to get the tops of these folds, leaving shadow in between them. A little bit down below.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Hey! Misha Shep, what's going on? I'm going to say Misha. Hope I didn't butcher your name. Thank you for the follow. Get these tops of these fabric as it bunches up between all of the strapping up here, using kind of a stippling, alternating stippling effect. So I'll do a brush stroke and then I'll just kind of stipple in. Stippling meaning just hitting the model with the point of the brush to fill in any gaps that the brush stroke creates. As we work under the arm, I still got to put some light blue down here. This is not our brightest color. We don't want to leave the bottom of the arm in pure darkness. It'll start looking too out of place later on in the model. But again, more of a one coat kind of area. Maybe grab the outside edges of these folds where they kind of bunch up on the sides. Right here. Right here. Leave it dark in between. Same thing here. Kind of grab this fold. A little bit of that edge in between. So We're also going to hit this with a purple. So always constantly be trying to remember. And I know for you guys that's tough because even though I wrote down on the color chart what we were using, when we use it and how we use it is what you're learning. And so I go into this kind of knowing, all right, well, I still got to do this, 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 and this. And so for me, you know, I get it. I know what I've got to do next. So I may be planning differently. You guys are just like, what's he doing? Why? But, you know, we're going to be using the purple as a glaze to deepen our shadows and bring a different hue onto the model than just the blue, because the hair is also going to be those kind of Space Wolf grays and blues. For the hair and the facial skin, we're using wolf gray, fog gray, and gorgon hide. Well, those are kind of in this same hue range, right? They're just lighter, a little bit more gray versions of this blue, right? But right next to this blue, like it falls, like that hair falls right across the blue armor, the skin and everything goes shoulder to shoulder and bridges the arms. So we've got blue here, blue here. When we're done with all this light blue, to drop that gray blue lightness on the skin and the hair up above, kind of bridges them, and we'll make it look a little flat. We'll lose a little bit of the flare of the model if we don't do something different, in my opinion. And so we're going to be putting a little bit of purple on our blues for the padded armor that we're painting right now. So when you know that that's going to happen, you have to also take that into account as you're painting these other colors on. So, you know, right now, painting this lighter blue, leaving the shadows super, super deep might have a little bit of a negative effect because we're going to be throwing purple in there. And so the purple is going to then become ultra dark as we do that and maybe not have as big of a hue impact as we really want it to. So that's why, again, I'm kind of pushing the light blue into the shadows. Not tremendously, because I'm not completely overtaking our previous dark blue, but still accenting it a little bit, right? Like, so even up under there on the bicep, that's pretty much going to be in an area of shade. And we still want to get enough color in there so that as we drop the purple will play differently on the light blue than it will on the dark, right? It'll become a little bit more, we'll see a little bit more of the reddish nature of purple on the light blue than we will on the dark. I feel like we're about to have a doorbell ring, maybe? On the way the dogs are bark? Delivery time? The dogs are in there just freaking out. Area up underneath. Again, this is still what we're calling like maybe a 1 tops 2 layer area because it will still need some shadow here. So we don't want to go too much paint up under the underarm and everything. Like that is good. And of course, we haven't changed the thinness of the paint. We're still working super, super thin as we go through all this. But it does give us the freedom of choosing how many layers and what impact those layers have as we go, as opposed to just dropping opaque paint on here and being stuck with a color. So pulling from the deepest shade, that's one thing we don't talk about a lot, and we probably should more, is that in a case like this, the darkest shadow for us along the back of this arm is going to be down here where the wing and the body meet. And so that's where I want to start my brush stroke, and very lightly come from there, and then a little heavier as I come out towards the elbow. So I'll focus more of my paint out towards the elbow so that it dips into shadow as it drops in towards the wing. And do that same thing on all of these pieces. And what that does is that every time you touch the brush to the model, it's going to unload a little paint, but then you're going to pull that paint towards where you pull the brush off of the model. All right? And so it's going to leave it dark over towards the left and build up over towards the right, or right, left, depending on the direction that you're looking at and where you want that brightness to fall. You can choose to just end your stroke wherever you want the paint to stay. And then you maintain a little bit of shadowing there. This work done, so we can get into our purples. Top of these arms. Now, different up here, this is going to be the brightest area of the arm, right across the top here. We're going to go ahead and get one layer down, let it set up, and then we'll continue to layer this up until we get a brightness that pretty much overdoes all of the blue that we've done so far. This will be the brightest area of blue on the model, will be the tops of these arms. So we got to regulate it against what we've done down here on the legs. Most of the time, that's why you find me starting low on the model. I'll build up what I like down low, and then I'll push it higher up high. Now, that might be counterproductive to you. You may say, well, I'd rather start up by the shoulders so that I can get the brightness I like up there, and then just not do as much paint down below and keep the bottom darker. Whichever works in your head for you is fine. There is no right or wrong there. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. You know, as you want the brightest part of the model to, in most models, you want it to be this triangle, this V shape that's created between the shoulders and head and the crotch line. You create this V, this boxed in upside down triangle kind of thing, and that your brightness is broad across the top of that and then starts to tail off as it comes down towards the crotch area, the tops of the chest. You know, a lot of that depends on the posture. He's, you know, very arched back, right, shooting a bow, so his chest bulges out a little bit, so we'll have highlight on the top of that armor there. If they're stooped over, then of course that changes and most of the highlight goes on the back, but it still creates that V of highlight on most models. And so if for you it makes more sense to start high, you know, get your paint set across the shoulders for the brightness that you think fits for the color you're doing, and then start just working less paint in down low, so you wouldn't have gone as bright on the knees maybe as we are here. That's your choice. I tend to do it the other way. It's just how I've always done it. But sometimes, depending on the color, like if we were doing white right now, it would be hard to push it higher if you already went to full white on the knees. So as you're learning, it might be good to start up on the shoulders.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Butter Knives! Great name. What's going on? Thank you for that follow.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Chaos Forged! What is happening? Thank you guys for the follows. Welcome, welcome. See if I can stay on frame here. Trying to get that base of light blue laid across the top of all these fabric regions. Once that's set up, we can do another layer, keep pushing it up brighter and brighter. But small areas like this will show you instantaneously what I meant earlier when I said you got to be careful about overworking one particular spot with very thin paint. You'll find that if I keep trying to add more paint just in this little bitty rectangular area here on the elbow, it'll never look lighter because I'll just keep mushing the paint around and moving it, and every time I add more water it just reactivates it and you lose the brightness. It'll be very frustrating, so you'll have to move someplace else. So we'll go over here to this other arm while we let that other side kind of set up. Again, back to more of a stippling motion on this side, because the folds are so small and close together that you don't want to do big, large brush strokes. If you do, you're going to overtake all your shadows. So what you're really trying to do is just get the point of the brush in there and just kind of poke color onto the peaks so that you don't push too much brightness down in between the folds. And you can still blend, because the way a stippling works is that it's laying down like a little circle or oval of color every time you poke the brush down there, and it has those kind of bleeding edges, I guess, that bleed out into the color around it if you're careful. You'll still be able to get it to blend and not just look like a line of paint, so to speak. $3.49. We're making pretty good time. Brightest area is going to be these tops of the arms. So I want to make sure I load up enough paint to sell it, but not so much that it looks kind of silly against the rest of the blue. So these under areas on the elbow, under the arm, more like one layer again, but more layers up top to brighten up just the top of the cuff. Area right here at the elbow. We're probably pretty good down there. These we can push a little bit of brightness onto the bulge of the folds down here. Again, because it's in here with the wing, all these areas towards the back are going to be darker, so we don't want to get too much brightness. Sorry, we don't want to get too much brightness up in here. And then especially not down low. So the further down we go, the less bright paint will push on. Till like right here, we literally just want like a highlight line, almost if we were doing like a non-metallic saturation glow right along there. Like so. Same thing right down here. More brightness up top, and then let that just kind of fade down.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Hey! Enigma, what is going on? Thank you for that follow. Welcome, welcome, people. If you're new here, just join us for the first time today. Hope you're enjoying it. This is our October paint-along. This is a model called the Bushido. It's from a game called Bushido, if you're not familiar with it, by GCT Studios over in England. And it is kind of a feudal, Japanese, somewhat historical, somewhat fantastical game. Obviously, we're painting big samurai birds, so it is definitely somewhat fantastical, but drawing a lot from like ancient mystical history kind of stuff. So really fun. We're focused on it for the next couple of weeks. We'll be playing the game, Uncle Touchy and I, on Sunday, this coming up one. Should be a lot of fun. Get to delve into the rules, see how these models actually play, although I won't be playing this Bushido model during the game. We're only playing with the starter sets. But I am playing Tengu, and he is playing the Ito clan, which has got kind of a snake theme going on. This is our paint-along model, so we've got quite a few viewers out there that also bought this model from us and are painting it, and we'll be able to see towards the end of the show what everybody's coming up with. Go through and take this time to teach various techniques that we use on a day-to-day basis here, and a lot of people can then apply it to the exact same model that we're painting, which is a nice rarity, a nice change of pace than just watching me paint random models from time to time and hoping it's something like what you got in front of you so you can maybe learn and apply the same things we do around here. Now you can learn and apply it right to the same model. And then show us how much better you are than I am, right? Or bitch about it like Ray. Damn it. It's kind of pumping up some of the value on the top of the arm here. Layering a little bit more up top than down underneath. Pretty good brightness. You can see we've got the tip of our knee down below is the brightest part on the pants, right? And we've now got a really good brightness set up across the top of the arm that still drops that kind of shadow down low on the leg. So that's exactly what we're looking for. Pretty good everywhere else. All right, and I think that's our blue. For our second color. Now, the scary part for some people is going to be that we're going to interrupt this blue with some purple. Right? Remember, and this is royal purple, by the way, from Game Color. I swear, yeah. So, purple. Got a name drop mahogany. Say, what? Ebb and flow? That's not even a color. Making stuff up. Queens of Tabletop, what's going on? Good to see you. Terrigan! It's off topic right now, but wonder if anyone else has the same feelings about Blood Bowl. You love and hate the game at the same time? Are we talking about tabletop or video or both? I guess they're both pretty much the same, right? I just got Blood Bowl 2 for the computer, and I gotta say I'm actually liking it. Cool, ready to roll. We'll see in a bit. Houdini 7, this is only model number 6 ever for you. But fun model to paint. It is a great model, man. And only model number 6, Houdini, and you're already killing it. Your last one was great. You reserve the right to change your mind once we start painting feathers. Feathers are a pain in the ass, I'm not going to lie. But I think that the way we're going to paint them, that you will enjoy it. Chaos Forge, we're glad to have you. Glad you found us. We've been around for a long time. It's always good to see new people poking in. Enigma, nice. Been trying to catch all the Long War cats online. Glad you found us, too. Awesome. Yeah, Bushido's great. And the minis are great. The details on them, awesome. FLGS. Yeah, friendly local gaming store, Terrigan. None around me, so you have to play online. Gotcha. Kevrob, model number 1. Holy hell, that's awesome. Raw Dog, what's going on? Model number 1. That is so awesome. All right, purple. Guys, we're going to go dirty water purple, right? So remember what I said earlier on with the thinness of our paints, right? Do I need to show us again? Do we need to have paint consistency with fuse one more time? I'm going to put the purple right here on my palette. Right, so this is going to be purple. And I'm going to show you exactly how thin we're going to be wanting to do this purple for the shadows, because that's where this is going to go initially. Right, we're going to glaze this purple into our shadows so that we get a little bit more hue on the model than just the kind of electric blue that we're building up. And what we're going to do, load our brush up with water, pull a tail of paint out, and we want this to be super, super thin. So I'm not going to pull much paint out. I'm going to go get more water and come back after it. Right, and unlike before, remember where I said I want this to stay cohesive when I push the droplet of paint over to a side. Now notice how it immediately runs back into the water and you can't tell there's a droplet of paint there anymore, right? By the time you count to 3, it's already spread back into the tail. That's what we want. This is called dirty water glaze right here, right? It's not very controlled on the palette. It's not very controllable on the model because it's so thin. It starts to want to be more of a wash or a true glaze, right? And that's fine. That's exactly what we need it for, because we're going to be very, very specific with how we put it on the model. Right? It's going to stay where we tell it to stay. And so what we're going to do is come in here, right? And let's start up high on the arms this time, right? And notice where we've got our shadows starting to fold in. I'm just going to want to hit these shadow areas. So on these areas where it's underneath the arm, where I know I don't have a whole lot of highlight, I'm going to get most of that area. I'm just going to kind of lightly put it on there. Now, before you do this, watch me do it. You guys that are following along with the paint-along, painting this model at home, right? Watch me do this before you just jump into it, okay? Because I don't want you to get frustrated. Notice how right now you can see a little bit of that purple start poking in there. We're gonna break focus if we go too much closer than that. Right? So again, look how thin the paint is. When I put it over the blue on my thumb, you can see mostly blue. When I wipe it off, it immediately goes away and there's not even any left on my finger. That's how thin we're painting with this. All right? So these areas underneath the arm here, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to take my brush and I'm moving from the lighter blue areas down into the underneath where I want the shadows to build up. So I'm starting up here, working down here. And notice how it starts building that purple up down along this area. Very, very lightly though, right? I don't want purple. That's not what we're going for, right? The purple is just toning the blue down a little bit and adding in another color to accentuate the folds and the shadows. And so again, we want to push it from the light area down into the dark area underneath the arm, like so. Because it's so thin, it's naturally blending. You're not going to get a whole lot of problem spots out of it. The big issue, the big problem with working like this is being able to see it at all, right? But now you can see just a little tinge of purple. Not too much. It doesn't look like I've painted paint on there. You can just start to see a little bit of color shift. Now, if I keep layering it up, you'll start seeing more purple, right? It'll start becoming more and more opaque, so I got to be careful. I don't want to overdo it. I just want to catch the shadow side of a lot of these folds and all over the underside of the arm here. Okay. Now, see how that purple starts showing in there? Just a little bit of a color shift on the blue. And it's up to you to decide how far to push it. Just realize you're not going to be doing this very much on the top. So if you push it too far with purple here, then the blue on top starts to look awkward, right? It starts to look like a two-tone shirt or something. So you're going to have to make sure that you are really, really light with this to start with. Then as we go in with our other blue highlights on top, you can start to work in maybe a little bit more purple in other spots, right? Less is more, guys. Less is more is the key to this. So err on the side of too much water in your paint is really what I'm saying. Right? I also want like right up in here underneath his bill, beak, push a little bit of purple on the shoulder, not too much. Just right up underneath the bill like that. Right? His beak comes right out along the edge there. Got a little bit of a beard or a piece of his hair that comes off, so I just wanted a little bit right in there. See? Same thing right up in here. I'm going to push a little bit of purple right up in the corner where the hair and the wing and the cloth all meet. Really drives home those shadows. And also gives us that little bit of color shift that we're looking for. And down here. Down here I'm going to go ahead and hit everything. Treat it like the underside of the arm. Just going to kind of stipple in the purple. Underside of this fold and down here, and then just along the back side of this fold on the shoulder blade. And then again, everything up underneath the arm here. A little bit in there. See nicely how it, as it dries, right? I guess my hand helps it out there. See how as it dries, that purple becomes a little bit more visible, but it's all blended in as if we had mixed a paint color like that. As opposed to if you put a wash on this, the wash is going to be a little bit overbearing in the deep spots because the way a wash wants to work is it wants to sit in the low recesses and pool and darken up there. This gives us a very even distribution of purple across the surface. Right? So if you look at this arm over here, right? You can't really see any pooling. There aren't any areas where it's really too much darker, and then it just blends nicely up into our blue, and then eventually our light blue will overtake it. It's all about just kind of looking at where you want the shadows, how you want the shadows to then reach out across the model and force this purple into those areas. Real subtle. All right, so over here, again, I want to start like along these fold lines and pull them down to underneath. And then focus on this entire panel as it drops underneath the arm. Again, cursing this damn quiver the entire time. Why did I put that on the model? Oh, yeah. That's right. Again. Purple down in the shadows. Right along this fold. This fold here is just deep enough that I want to get a little bit more purple on it, right along here. Then a little bit, I want to shove a little bit right up underneath the hand holding the bowstring back. Okay. So that it gets a little bit of darkness up here, then comes out a little bit brighter. So, of course, all of the underside of this forearm. Focusing anywhere where a strap crosses our blue. A little bit darker around those areas. So, keep comparing side to side. I really like how the purple's sitting in here, so I'm going to go push a little bit more over here into the bottom of this shadow panel right here. Balance that out. A little bit more up underneath the forearm on this side too. And again, really the only way you can tell you're even doing anything when you paint like this is because the model gets wet. That's all you can see sometimes. You can't see the color initially. You can only see that it got wet. It becomes shiny where you put the paintbrush on it. And you might not be able to tell there's purple there. If it got wet, there's purple there. And you gotta wait for it to dry sometimes before you see it. So sometimes people get frustrated when using this technique because they paint, it gets wet, you don't see anything, you put more on, you don't see anything, you put more on, and then when it dries and all that pigment actually lays on the model, it's too dark, right? So be careful, right? Just be very, very careful as you lay it on and be looking more in terms of wanting to see the shininess of, you know, wetness hitting the model as opposed to necessarily looking for color all the time. I know that's weird, right? Trust me. Emalian, what's going on? Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. All right, so I like that color shift a lot. That's getting us into where our blues, our darker blue is a nice, got that nice purple in it without looking too iridescent, right? We're not going to push it to where it looks all freaky alien kind of fabric, which if we do too much more purple, that's what it starts looking like. And again, we're using royal purple from Game Color, Vallejo, for this. We're going to push it into the shadows down here by the wings. And by push, I really mean literally push. We're taking the paint, and now instead of working out of the shadow back up here, we're starting out at our brighter area of the elbow and pushing the side of the brush down into the crevice of shadow by the wing. Be careful when you use this technique because you can screw your brush up pretty bad pushing paint. Brushes aren't really meant to push paint. They're meant to make nice long draws across a surface, not jab paint down into a crevice on a metal model. But hey, we make do. All right, so see how I'm leaving the brighter blue out towards the elbow as it comes towards us? That's what gives us the depth on the model. Push the purple down deep into the shadows there. On the tops, again, you can kind of use a little bit of artist license here if you want to, where you've got these deep folds, right? So we got this deep fold right
Well,
here.
huzzah, huzzah.
We can push a
I'll just
little
throw
bit in
back my
there
legs
on
and
the
pollute my
low side
britches
of
with
it.
delight.
You just don't get any on the top, right? You can do a little bit like that, just a little bit. Momotaros, thank you for that sub with Twitch Prime. Thank you, thank you. Welcome. Fresh Toast, this is a model from GCT Studios. They make a game called Bushido, and this is called Buzenbo. I think that's a name, like his name maybe. I don't remember if he's a character or not. It's Buzenbo, and he is a bird samurai, Tengu samurai, in the game Bushido. And he's very large. This guy's like a 54 mil model compared to like the standard humanoid size in the game is 30 millimeter, 28 millimeter. So he's pretty big. And this is a paint-along that we do time to time, working in league with the manufacturers of these games. They will give us a bunch of the model, and a bunch of our viewers out there that are watching along with you are also painting this exact same model. And at the end of the show, we'll see how they've progressed watching these techniques that we're doing on the fabric armor today. We've gone through and done some blues, a little bit of highlight. Now we're pushing a little purple onto it to get that blue to shift into kind of a different coloring. We don't want pure purple. We don't want pure blue. We want something that lives in the middle. And so that's why we're pushing a little bit of purple into the shadows just to give it kind of a really cool feel and stay away from just, you know, a generic blue. And it gives us the ability to work with the hair and the skin that are going to be a blue-gray and not have them fall into the exact same color and make the model look a little more flat. So let's keep working with our purple. We're working super thin. You can tell every time I put purple to unload the brush over this blue, notice how it hardly covers up the blue at all. And that's a good tester, right? Because each time you paint, if you're using your thumb palette, like I do, then you can see exactly what you're going to get on the model. The purple is going to let enough of that blue shine through to give you a really cool effect, as it is, right? A little bit in the shadows right here along the where the armor crosses with this stuff up here. I've got the, turn the model like this, I've got the area here with the elbow, right? And the forearm and the bicep where it meets. So I'm gonna drive a little bit of purple into that shadow where the arm pinches together and the folds here, just to kind of accentuate that division in the arm. Not too much, a little bit. Again, a little bit along this area right here as it kind of pushes up to the shadow where it's formed by the wing. Do a little bit of purple right in there. Again, you're barely getting a glow of purple. That's how thin our paint is. Right? You can barely see the purple in between the folds here. And you don't want a whole lot, so don't get frustrated. Remember, a little bit goes a long way when doing these types of effects. If you push too much in there, it starts to look funky. Got good amount pushed in there. Look at the back side over here. I feel like we did pretty well over here. Yep. Like all that. We do the same thing right here. Again, pulling from the brighter blue area downward into the shadow formed where the shoulder blade starts arching back down into the back. So we'll just have that purple be down low. All right, so the upper body looks pretty good like that. Sets us up for our last blue highlight. Let's get the knees and legs. And remember, this is now a place where if you had something that was going on the lower torso that you thought was too bright compared to the upper arms, now you can start fixing that. Right? So I'm going to start right here on the bottom side of the knee where I know it's going to be dark. Right? I'm I'm just going to start layering in a little bit of purple on the bottom of that fold. Anything under here. And this is what I mentioned earlier. Like when, you know, for you guys, it might not really be fair. Because even though we're doing the paint along, you know what model we're painting, you know what colors we're painting, because we said it a month ago, right? You guys still don't know the method that I'm going to use with some of those colors, whereas I do. So I can paint in a certain way, knowing that I'm going to come back and like darken in the whole calf muscle area by putting this purple over it. But it allows you to kind of do some fixing, right? So if this was too bright for you, just layer in a little bit of purple. You got to be careful though, right? Too much changes the hue of the model too much, and it starts looking like purple with blue highlights, which is a little freaky. We want to stay away from that. So you can't fix everything with it. Sometimes you're going to have to go dump a little bit more dark blue in an area, something like that. I want to push again. I'm taking the paintbrush and I'm running from the bright blue up into the belt area. So I can push a little bit of that purple shadow upwards like that. Same thing here. A little bit up towards the belt line. Not too much. Because again, the top of the thigh is going to be mostly brighter. But it gives me a good way to separate all these materials. I'm going to have belt leather coming in with the red and then the gold and everything else we're going to be doing right there. So it's just kind of a neat way to separate my color out early on. Maybe a little bit down low on this side where it all kind of pinches together with these other materials. That lower corner.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Hey! Barrier, what's going on? Thank you so much. You know it, Ray. Enigma, you got a bunch of stuff you want to order. When is the resupply on brushes, paints, and brush cleaner? Brush cleaner should be up there right now. Gintastic's Drunken Brush Soap is all we will be carrying here. So if you were looking at any of the other brush cleaners, look for the brush goop, the Drunken Brush Goop on the site, and it should be in stock. Unless we sold a bunch right at the beginning of the stream, which I haven't checked. It should be in stock. The 2 ounce and the 1 ounce are both in stock. That's our own brush soap. It's this stuff. Look for the unicorn. Best brush cleaning stuff on the universe. We hand make it right here. Gin does. I say we. Loosely we. I put the stickers on the cans.
Somebody likes us.
And I mail it to you guys. Momotaros, welcome. Thank you for that. Right. Ferrier, oh, awesome, man. Glad you found us. Yeah, I've been painting for 38 years, so I've gotten away from it a couple of times, but it pulls me back in all the time. Yeah, but we got brush soap. The only thing we're out of stock of, I think, most of the paints are in stock. I think, as I look, we've got over 400 colors of paints in the store, and as I look at it, I think we're only out of maybe 2. I think we're out of Plague Brown, I can see. Oh, we're out of some of the purples, the game color purples. Those were supposed to get here today, so they'll be in stock tomorrow. So if you're waiting on paint colors, everything should be in stock tomorrow. That includes the quick the quick shade wash mixing medium from Army Painter. I know a lot of people have been looking for that. Hopefully that shows up tomorrow. But yeah, usually we keep all of our stock. I order every single week for paints. Everything else, maybe not every single week, but paints, I literally place an order every single week. We get like $250 to $300 worth of paint in every single week because you guys buy. I don't want to be below like 1 or 2 of each bottle of paint. And generally, we have like 5 or 6 of every color of Model Air, Game Color, and all the Army Painter stuff. So just keep checking back on that. Brushes, I wish I had a specific answer for you. Unfortunately, we have not gotten an update from them saying, hey, you'll see brushes tomorrow. But the last time, it literally, they showed up on the doorstep the day after they said, hey, we shipped them. Which means, they didn't let me know until like a week after that they had shipped them, but whatever. I'm hoping they should be in, next week, question mark? Hope maybe by the end of this week if we get really lucky. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, because anytime stuff like that hits stock again, I always blast it out on Facebook so that people know. But yeah, hopefully brushes we'll see soon. That's the one that everybody wants. So, and including me. Like, I would really love to have brushes in stock again. We make, for anybody that's not doesn't know what we're talking about, we make our own line of brushes. What I'm using right now is what's called a bomb wick. It's a Kolinsky sable, very fine natural sable hair brush that we came out with, 2 months ago, I guess now it's been. Did we come out with it? I think so. I feel like that's right. Like 2 months ago, we actually came out with them for retail. We've been using them for months as we've gone through setting up all the prototypes, figuring out what worked, what didn't, what to change, all that. We've been painting on the stream with them for much longer than that. But they just finally hit retail and instantly sold out, and we didn't plan for that. We didn't have any idea that they were going to be gone so quick, so that was bad on us. But we've got a restock coming in. We will also have single brushes where we normally only sell them in sets of 5. Now you'll have the ability to buy single brushes as well, any size. So from 00 up to size 3 will be available as singles. If you just want to replace a brush that you're using now, or you beat the crap out of one and need to replace it, it'll prevent you from having to buy a whole new set. So we're excited about that too. And they will be here in any time now, hopefully. 2 weeks! You said 2 weeks 2 weeks ago. I know, that's what 2 weeks means, 2 weeks. Eventually, 2 weeks will be the truth. Again, I'm going to get the bottom side of his bum here, just under the cheek, going from the bright section and then loading up underneath. Right, and it's just up to you as to how far you pull that purple into the bright blue, right? You can push the shadow up. Like this panel right here looks a little too bright. It drops the brightness down a little bit too far. So just keep pushing the purple upwards, right? By actually extending the brush up into this area and pulling down, right? So we'll just keep doing that. Layering that up, and now, see, now instantaneously we get a little bit more of a fade from that bright blue down into the transition underneath the buttocks. We'll just put another layer on. And each layer, step back and take a look. Now you see that shadow coming up a little bit more. Right? We don't want it to come up too far, right? Just look at the shape of the model. He doesn't have a big bubble butt, so we're not gonna push that shadow up too far. A little bit further on this side because of the quiver. And then, of course, all underneath in that dark area where we only put about 1 layer of the bright blue. And that'll get our shadow back in there. Then again, in between all these folds, just on the underside. Being careful not to get any on the top, if we can avoid it. And yeah, we paint a lot. If you're new around here, we paint a little bit of everything. We haven't done any 40K in a while, have we? We just got done painting an Age of Sigmar model for one of our viewers. The Vermin Lord from Skaven in Age of Sigmar. What do they call him now? Are they even called Skaven anymore? I don't know what they're called. Seems like they keep changing the names. Again, we want to blend a little bit of that shadow coming out from underneath the butt area out into, the back of the thigh here, because the body still shadows all that. But we don't want to get the tops of those folds. We want to be able to have those peak a little bit top of the calf in the back to be a little bit brighter. Right? And I feel like that's looking good. Bingo. And that's how purple can alter your blue without becoming too purple, right? I mean, a lot of people are afraid when, I do stuff like this. They're like, why in the world would you do green over flesh? That makes no sense unless you want it to look dead. But you can do what I call hue shifting, right? Where you can just take that blue and punch it to a little bit of color change, right? just a little bit, but nothing on here looks like a purple racing stripe. You know, we don't want it to look like, why is that purple there? Did he spill something on him? Was he drinking grape juice? That's not what we're looking for. We just want a little bit of color shift. Reason being that if we do this right, then as we go in and we add our lighter blue to it, the lighter blue now drags it from kind of this reddish blue to true blue on top, and gives us a nice transition into from our shadows up into it without being too one-dimensional. Because if we just use, you know, triads are neat, right? You come in, you find a dark blue, right? A mid-tone blue and a light blue. Bam. This is a great triad. You know, it's good for a base, a medium, and a highlight, and it looks great, but it's still flat because it's still all blue. So just adding a little bit of color somewhere in there, right? Even if you just go in and maybe you add a little hint of yellow over your light blue highlights will change the way this triad looks and like incredibly. Or like we did, add a little bit of purple in this stage and then go in your light blue. It changes that triad completely, right? We get it where now we've got a really nice, richer shadow on it than just the dark blue. Because to me, even 3 colors like this can tend to look flat, you know. You'll find that if you look at materials in the real world, which we always tell you, right? I mean, art in its base form is literally just the expression of an individual's interpretation of the world around them. So you go outside and you see how something looks, and then you go paint that same thing. You go see a squirrel, paint a squirrel. Your squirrel may not even look like a squirrel. It may be like some weird, crazy, abstract art thing, but it's still your interpretation of what you saw. And some people take that and stretch it to where the light and the shadows are backwards, but the being 180 degrees out was still based on what they saw in reality. So no matter how you take it and introduce it onto miniature or canvas or whatever it is you're doing, always be trying to do that with some foundation in reality. Even if what you're doing is flipping reality on its head when you paint it. Doesn't matter, but you knew what reality was doing so that when you flipped it on its head, when somebody looks at it, and you may not even have to explain it, you just look at it and you go, oh wow, I love how you flipped your light and shadow around. That actually is really cool, you know, and they get it because to them, the eye and the brain can distinguish what you were going for because they know how it compares to real life. So even if you're doing weird shit, right, if you base it on real stuff first, it has more impact on the viewer, right? As opposed to just making stuff up, like you're just throwing color around and you have no rhyme or reason to it. You know, nobody does that really. I mean, I say that. I'm sure somebody does. Right? But none of the people we learn about art and all that from, they all had their vision. They may have been cranked out of their gourd, you know, and then like a dolly taking what he thought was reality and then, you know, melting clocks in what he painted. But there was some foundation in what he saw the world as out there. And so if you can take that and then alter it to your needs, you'll get a lot more out of it. And part of that is color. Very rarely will you walk out into the world and look at a blue car and only see blue. Right? There will be purples, there will be yellows, there will be other colors in there that may be reflections on metal. They may be just the way the plastic absorbs and reflects light may give it a little bit of a color shift because of what it's made out of. It may be dirt that's on a thing that causes a little bit of translation of color to happen, but all of that happens. It's very rare to walk out in the world and say, oh my God, there's something that's red and not find any pink, not find any yellow, not find any orange on that thing, right? So always be thinking in those terms. It'll help you a lot because just a little bit of extra color to hue shift on things will bring in a reality to it or take it away from reality, depending on what you're looking for. Some Blood Bowl with me online? Oh my God, I just started playing like the other day. So I'm literally like not even halfway through the solo campaign. I don't even know all of the aspects of the game yet. What shade of purple is it? A dark or light? Drac, I'm using royal purple, so it's actually very dark. Well, not super dark, but it's pretty dark. If you had Army Painter, it's very similar to like Alien, although Alien's got more red in it. I guess it's actually not as similar now that I pull it down, right? Alien trends into kind of magenta, whereas the royal is still sitting heavily in blues. So yeah, it's just a very dark purple that trends towards blue because we're painting it over blues. Good example, if we were to use this, right, like an alien purple that trends a little bit further into the red side of purple. If you did that over the blue, right, you're going to get that kind of weird pinkish thing coming up.
Why don't you
like, what the hell is that? What's
up,
up, James Stay
Maybe
Stealth?
it'll make you feel better.
Uh-oh. I feel like we're triggering giveaways now. I feel like that makes us have to turn the booty heart on. Bam. Congratulations, people. Everybody hype it up. James Stay Stealth, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you, my friend. Everybody, exclamation point booty in chat if you want to be part of this giveaway. We will do it towards the end of this stream. James Say Stealth has just made sure that somebody is not going home empty-handed. The rest of us will. I never win anything on here, so. Good to see you, James. What's happening, man? Ray Silver, did you say freaky alien iridescence? You got this. Nice. Wait a minute. What? Butter knives. You wish you had this kind of direction when you painted miniatures years ago? All you had to go off of was Citadel manuals? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's true for all of us. I feel like the
$20 donation
advent of the internet, YouTube is a great thing, but YouTube's not interactive, right? Whereas I think Twitch came around and a bunch of us jumped on it and are like, oh my God, if we could get people to come watch us paint here, how great would that be? Because of this. Because you guys can ask me, I can say something right back to you. In a lot of cases, we will actually have people say, hey, I'm having problems with this, and we'll do it. You know, I mean, I'll sit on stream and, you know, do the thing that you're having a problem with so that you can see my method of maybe overcoming the hurdles that you're running into. So yeah, glad you found us. Does this mean you'll get into painting again? I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I used to do this. You'll do it again, right? Just looking for the unicorn. She's out of town now. She just left today. She'll be back tomorrow. Grins, you gave your brother the trove and he asked, what's a Bombwick brand brush?
Hey,
that's me.
Somebody likes us.
He got a Bombwick. The only Bombwicks I have, I lie when I say I don't have any. That's a lie. I have singles that I put in the Friday treasure troves, but those are the only ones. I don't have any full packs.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Tarsal Vesser, I probably just butchered your name. And Kamal Pasha, welcome. Thank you for the follows. If I butcher your name, I'm not doing it on purpose, I swear to God. Thank you, people, for joining us. James never wins anything either. Well, I know. Wah, wah, wah. We can cry into our beers someday. Entire Mac, how many streams are we splitting this into? We do a minimum of 3 streams for our paint-alongs. And with this one, depending on how far we get, my goal would be that by Friday, we have all of the base and highlights done for all of the body work on him. And then if we have to move into Tuesday of next week for the wings, we'll do that. All right? The wings will be the last thing we do. And I'm hoping to have everything else to a point where at least we've, you know, what we wind up doing if we run into time crunches is I'll do, like, let's say, if we're doing the non-metallic gold for the armor, I'll do, like, the chest plate area. And then just, I won't do more. I'll just show the method for doing the plates and the overlaps and the shades and the highlights, and then you guys put it all over the model. So my model might not be 100% done by the end of it. Same like the last one that we did, which was the Arena Rex Tribune. If you remember this was a paint-along model for us. And, you know, I didn't finish everything on this model, but I showed all of the parts and pieces so that everybody else that was painting along with us could go through and get it done at their own pace. So sometimes, you know, we don't push them to completion, but we want to make sure that we touch on each color, each method of painting, each technique that we're applying, things like that, so that everybody has the right tools to finish it on their own. Eternal adoration and dad jokes. Telemachus, why? What the hell are slow bucks used for? Nothing. Nothing. You'll cry into scotch with me? All right. All right, I don't drink scotch, though. I'm not a big drinker. Dan the Burger Man, what's going on? Thank you for that. Yeah, we were just showing everybody the pushing a little bit of purple into the shadows. It really gives it that hue shift, gives us a little bit of color to play with, but not done in a way that's too abusive to your blues. You know, if you push too much purple on there, like I said, it starts looking like a two-tone football suit or something, right? Or like a track suit, like it has racing stripes. You want to blend it nicely, and the way that we do that with this kind of stuff is by just thinning your paint down to where it's literally dirty water. And with the purple, then, you know, like the purple in the area up under the arm is what? That's probably 3 layers of paint to get to this purple up here. But our blue is still forcing its way through. We never overtake our blue 100% so that it acts like a shadow, right? And that's really the key. And we may rebalance it. We may put a little bit more purple in there as we brighten up the blue. We'll see. What time is it? 4:30? We got a little bit of time to put a little bit of the light blue on there and start working with it. You're going to start cashing slow bucks in for store credits? Holy hell. I better tell Jen not to listen to you. Don't believe James. He's lying. I can be bribed with Moscow mules? No, now it's changed. The only thing that I think I can be bribed with is donuts stuffed with ice cream. Oh my God, that was life-changing. Watch out, 400 pounds. Here I come. All right, let's do a little bit of light blue on this. We do have a giveaway to do, and we still got to check whip for everything that you're doing. So if you're painting this model along with us, give yourself enough time towards the end of the show to pop over a picture. Let us see where you're headed with it. For those people that may be just joining us, this is one of our paint-along miniatures. So there are 20 different people out there in viewerland that bought this miniature from us. GCT Studios, the guys that make Bushido the game, were nice enough to give us basically all they had in stock for a while. I think they finally got back in stock before we ended that, but they were out of stock as soon as they shipped all these Buzimbos to us. And we were able to get them out into viewers' hands. So there are actually people out there in the audience today who are painting this exact miniature, maybe in their own colors, maybe in the colors that we're using here. You can type !paint-along in chat. It will send you over to our website, slowfusegaming.com. The miniature's no longer for sale, but the paint list is still there of all the paints we're using to paint this. So if you have a miniature at home that maybe has fabric and armor and whatever, it doesn't have to be, it could be a sci-fi model for all we care. But if you want to try these same techniques on a model that you've got that has maybe similar textures, you know, an Infinity model with cloth pants and an armored chest would work great for this color scheme. You know, so you can follow along and use those paints and try these techniques, or do them with the colors your own. It's not really, like I was saying earlier, it's not really about the color, it's more about the technique and how you apply it. If you are doing different colors, you may have to pop in chat and say, hey, I'm doing mine instead of blue. I decided to do greens on my armor where you've got your blues. What would I do instead of the purple? Because the purple might not look right on your greens, and I might come back and I say, use a really dark blue, you know, or use a brown or something like that. So if you are choosing different colors, don't be afraid to ask me, hey, what would I replace what you're doing with in my case? Fine, right? Hey, Uncle Touchy, Jen's out of town. Are we doing ice cream stuffed donuts tonight? The cat's away, the mice will play. Is there a bar in New York City that serves a 164-ounce Moscow Mule? Shoot, I don't have that many friends, Telemachus, unless all of us go together. That ain't getting drank. Either that or I'm getting drunk. Button Eyes, you definitely get back into miniature painting. You'd love to paint some miniatures. Nice. Nice. Do I ever show swapping arm weapons, cutting off and attaching ones from different models? We don't do a lot of like model building stuff. If you'd have joined us on Sunday, I was building models, but I wasn't doing any stuff. Uncle Touchy, one of our guest hosts, was here, and I was just building up all the Tengu guys that I'm going to be building for Sunday's show to play with. I don't spend a lot of time doing videos on conversion work, only because we focus mainly on painting and sculpting. We haven't done sculpting in a while either, though. But yeah, I do a ton of conversions. I also sculpt models from zero, so building armatures and sculpting my own models and stuff too. We don't do a whole lot of that on stream because that's a time-consuming process. So you'll find videos on my YouTube channel. Slow Fuse Gaming is also YouTube. It's also Facebook. It's also Insta. It's also everything. Slow Fuse Gaming. Look for us everywhere. But you'll find that I have got videos about how to build an armature for sculpting, how to do this, how to do that. So yeah, but I don't think I have any videos on like arm swaps and head swaps. But if you got questions, ask them, and we can help you answer anything you got. Grins, is that you need to come visit and make homemade ice cream sandwiches from your grandma's recipes? I figure that might pay rent for a night or two. Telemachus loves the purple and green combo. Oh, I do? You got me mistaken, sir. That's funny. Drac, you'd have to move to be able to hang out with you. It's been... Everybody's welcome. It's hotter than the surface of the sun here, but everybody's welcome. Come burn with us. The mule is $250. Holy hell. I was going to say, I feel like we could make a lot more mules at home, and it'd be easier to have a party here. Nobody'd screw with us. I'm just saying. Flip you, what's going on? The lurker booty. Aw, man. Flippy is just here to steal the money. Thief! All right, let's do a little bit of light blue before we get out of here and do our giveaway. I want to get everybody set up so that the people that are following along at home can have all the tools to finish the blues by the time we start up tomorrow. Troglodyte blue. So remember, we started with deep blue, all from Army Painter. We moved into Viking blue, and then troglodyte blue. And troglodyte blue pushes us up into kind of an electric blue. It's still very, 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 very blue. We're not trending towards purple. If anything, we're trending towards white. Like, ultimately, keep highlighting this, you wind up at white. So there's no yellows, there's no... This is blue, all right? And again, we're going to be working with this very, very thin. And we don't want edge highlights, all right? Remember, folks, we are not doing edge highlights. We want to blend all of our highlights in as we go, because it's fabric. fabric doesn't require any kind of line edging or stuff like that. All right, I may be a little thin. Let's see. You can see how thin I am. I'm basically, again, just dirty water. Right? Can't hardly see it. Start down here on the knee. Maybe a little bit too thin. I think like this paint, sometimes the Army Painter paint doesn't like to mix. I feel like I got more medium than I got pigment. There we go. Mucho better. A couple extra shakes fixes the problem. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Wow, I feel good. Perfect. Now we're talking. What's up, Dano? Am I watching Megabots live tonight? I didn't realize it was tonight until somebody else had mentioned it. I probably will try to catch it. Is it only on TV or can I do webcast watching? I got a lot of work to do tonight. I don't know if I can steal away the time to sit at the TV. Now here, we're being very, very specific. I need to get just the peak of this fold and blend it a little bit. And then the peaks like right here and right there, a little bit there, a little bit there. Right in the middle over here. Again, loose brush stroke so it doesn't look like I'm just painting a highlight line. But I get a little bit of brightness in the middle. And every time I put a brighter color on, it makes that shadow of purple that we drove up in towards the belt line and the knee, those get really dark as soon as we put just the slightest amount of bright paint there. And over here, just a little bit across the top of this fold. Right, and same effect, pushes the shadows in there even further. And then just a little bit. I mean, like I am even reluctant to put any down here, but I'm going to put just a little triangle of highlight right here on the inside of this knee and right on the inside of this part of the fold on this side too. I mean, just ever so slightly, just so I can pull a little bit of this color down. I got to be careful here. It's too much. Gets rid of all of our shadow, right? So just literally right on the tip of the knee there without making it look like a line highlight. I blend it back just a little bit. That's why I said a triangle, because I basically can just come in here and flick the brush a little taller here, thin towards the edge, taller here, thin towards the edge, and give it that glow. And then same thing right here. I mean, I'm literally, I don't want much here at all. Bam. Fix that. Feather this just a little bit on that side. Like that. And then same thing right, I mean, this is the kind of stuff where you're just like, oh God, too much paint right here ruins the whole spiel. Yeah, I just want to add a little bit of glow to the side of this seam because I want it to look puffy. And the way you get it to look puffy on the model is you give it just a little bit of brightness to either side of the seam. So it looks like it, you know, pooches out of the shade, or, you know, maybe you choose to brighten it in the middle and darker towards the seam. Just give it some dimension there. You don't have to do too much because, again, we don't want this part of the model to be too bright. So if we push too much in there, we screw ourselves. Again, like right here along this section, I want just a little bit. I'm running out of paint on the brush, which is awesome. That's the perfect time to do these real slight highlights, right? Is when you don't have much left on there at all. That way I'm not in fear of like going gloop and just getting a really bright spot down here that looks silly. I can just kind of barely push some brightness onto the edge there. And again, I get to have that highlight that's right along the seam. A little bit right here. Using kind of a circular stroke to make sure that all I get is the curve at the front of that piece. Feather a little bit in down low here. And I mean, we're talking about, I say it all the time, how just a little bit of paint goes a long way. That is 100% what we're doing right here. A little bit of paint goes a long way because of that purple that we pushed in, right? Look how the purple now becomes at home even with the brighter blue, right? The shadows don't look out of place. It doesn't look like we spilled purple paint on the leg, right? If anything, having the bright blue highlights in there really just kind of hides that purple so that it becomes part of the blue. It's almost like that was just our base coat. And all you got to do, like I said, is just be careful not overdoing it with the brightness. Because the brightness, as we do highlights, those are the parts that we look at and really make it pop. Right? You hear us use that term all the time. All right, that's what makes the model pop. The problem is, you know, you get attracted to that. You're like, oh, look at the cool effect that putting a bright color on the model has. Then you put too much, and now the model's too bright, and you have details everywhere. You got highlights on every inch of the model, and when you get done, it looks like a clown suit or a disco ball. Everything's just got too much brightness working with it. So just be careful. Less is more. Recognize that it's doing cool stuff, but tell yourself when to back off. All right, that's cool. I'm not going to put any more on for now. I'm going to wait until I get other stuff done. Because remember, we still have golds and reds and everything else to do. So if we push this blue too far, it's going to force us to do things with those other colors that we might not feel comfortable doing. Push the golds too bright when we may not want shiny gold. Maybe we want dull gold. Push the reds too bright when I really want dull red lacquered leather armor on this guy. So if I make the blues too bright, then it forces me to push the reds brighter just to keep up, and you don't want to do that, right? So we'll stop with the bottom of the legs right there for now. Feel like that's pretty good. Oh, let's get these folds over here at the outside of this other leg. All right, so we got to get like brightest point on this side of this leg is going to be this fold right here, the top part of this fold coming out of the knee. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on it, put a little bit more brightness on the top, not too much, but a little bit more than everywhere else. We still keep all of these folds nice and dark where we need them. Maintain some of that shadow. I want to highlight a little bit along this seam. I'll stipple in a little bit there. That's starting to come alive. I'm digging that. Notice how our folds now, nothing is too dark, right? The darkest one is right here because that fold is really deep, so that makes sense. But none of these go from bright blue to like pow, black, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier. We wanted to make sure we got enough blue inside the fold so that we didn't have any area that just went tremendously dark to tremendously bright. It looks unnatural. You always got to be careful with that. Now we're going to start doing the top of the buttocks here. Get a little bit layered in that. Need a whole lot on this other leg. maybe a little bit just to eke out a little color, but I'm not going to put a whole lot down there. Fine in darkness like that. Otherwise, the fabric starts to look like it's shiny, which is not our goal. Starting to look pretty good. Not mad at that. You can see the big difference between the lower legs and the upper body. Now that with just a little bit of brightness on there, how different they look from one another. 450, we need to do a giveaway. Hopefully that gives you guys the tools to be working on the rest of it. If you want to hold off, tomorrow we'll start the day going through and highlighting the upper body real quick, and then we'll be done with our blues. We'll move from that to our red enameled leather or lacquered leather plate that we'll do, and let's see, skin and hair will be tomorrow. All right, so we'll start off doing the finish work on the blues, then we'll move into the reds and the skins. All right, and that way on Friday we're dealing with the non-metallic metal stuff. All right, so we'll head into the weekend with your head exploding from doing all the non-metal work. Lay like that? Does that even work? I don't know if that's worth it. Scaparak, are you planning on coloring the miniature the same as in the photo in the shop? Similar colors. We're going brighter with some. As you can see already, like the model in the shop has got a kind of a almost, I won't say like a seafoam blue, but their blue is a little bit more trending into the greenish yellow blue, if that makes sense. That may just also be because the photo in the shop I think has a green background. But we've added in the purples. So again, here, let me see if I can bring it back up. Yeah, I still got it up. There it is. Let's go over here. Like that. So here's the one for the color in the shop, and I can kind of sneak my guy in over here. Right, so you'll notice how it trends, like as you're looking at the blues from the shop one, they look almost a drop into teals. Not really. I think that may be a lot of the green background that they've shot it on, giving us that hue shift, just fooling our eyes, kind of. But we wanted the purple in ours, so we're dumping a little bit of that purple in there so that his skin, because that grayish blue skin, grayish white hair with a little bit of that blue tint on it, won't look flat on this. Our skin and hair will stand out a lot more than on the one in the picture. They tend to be in the same range. It's just a higher value of almost the same color in the picture, it seems. So we wanted to drive a little bit of purple into ours for that reason. But yeah, trending into the same kind of basis for color. Our golds will be a little bit different, but they'll still be gold. Our reds will be different, but they'll still be reds. So I like the color palette that they used. So that's what we're sticking with. And if you're curious about the exact colors, if you type in !Paint-along in the chat, or if you just go to slowfusegaming.com and go over to the store, click on the miniature section of the store, it will bring you to the Buzimbo model, and you can look for the paint list. And the description of the model is the list of every paint we're going to be using. Okay, so there's like 30 paints listed there, and those are all the colors that we'll be using through the course of the painting. Ha! Max Payne, you know a guy that sells paint agitators? Say what? I don't use my own products. What, are you kidding me? Butter knives, see building levels of color for highlights. Do we dry brush as well? Very, very rarely, butter knives, do we dry brush. Typically when we're dry brushing, we're doing like bases. You know, if I dry brush on a base or something, then, you know, I'll come in and do, you know, like layers of dry brush on more natural surfaces. Only because it leaves a texture that is befitting more of like rock, wood, maybe some rough scaly skin, things like that. But I don't dry brush a whole lot. Dry brushing is a great method to use in a hurry because it gives you a lot of depth on a model very quickly. I have moved into where over the years I just have started layering, and I get kind of the same effect without all the texture in a more controllable manner. Dry brushing is not a controllable style of painting, but it does a lot of really cool stuff. Private Snafu, nope, we don't do any pre-highlights on our paint-along models. Private Snafu is asking about what we normally do for models, which is we'll go through and do I have one here? I don't know if I even have a... I know I've got something somewhere here. We will go through on models, and before we even start laying color, we'll go in and drop a pre-highlight on that model, right? So that you've got the black primer coat and then the white over the top of it, and you layer the white so that it gives you various levels of grays. If I turn this down, it won't saturate so badly, right? So the white, goes through grays and puts the shadows on the model where you want. It shows you where your highlights are going to go. It creates a real good kind of paint by numbers effect. It's great. It's better to do this with an airbrush than to hand paint it on. You can definitely hand paint it on. It just takes a long time, right? So using grays and whites, you can brush paint the same way. The Space Marine is brush painted. The Monkey King guy over here is airbrushed. So you can get the same effect. It's just that people watch me take a whole stream, like 3.5 hours, where we did this by brush, placing the lighting, getting the highlights right, and trending through all the grays, whereas this is just white. Like literally this takes 3 minutes with an airbrush. But because I don't know who all has an airbrush when we're doing the paint along, we just don't do any pre-highlights. So it makes our work a little bit more in-depth, but it teaches you all the real good things if you layer from no highlight through to your highlight. Then you'll learn a lot more about value. This is a good cheating method. Once you get value down and you know that, okay, what I need is just very quick to go from dark blue to light blue, this is great, because if you paint dark blue on this guy for his armor, it's going to go to dark, mid-tone, light blue with one color, because the way the white and the grays and the blacks all interact with it. You guys have seen me do this a million times. This is our general way of painting. And it makes things happen quicker, gets to the details a lot quicker, so on and so forth. But if you don't have an airbrush, then if I were to do that on the paint-alongs, you'd be lost, right? Your colors wouldn't look like my colors at all, because you'd still be going through what we're doing here, right? But what we're teaching here is just how to recognize where the values need to sit on the model by using your eye and your brain to tell you, okay, what part of the model is going to be brighter, what's going to be darker, how do I highlight that, yada, yada. Learn that no matter what. Even if you're comfortable with the pre-highlighting method, it's good for you to learn placement of values on a model. Be able to paint a model with a brush in black and white and make it look awesome in just blacks, grays, and whites, and you've got it. Color becomes easy at that point, right? So what we're doing here is just helping everybody go through all the stages of, okay, where would bright paints go in order to make sure I still see all the folds in the pants like we've got going on, all of that. So always a good method to learn. And when we do the paint-alongs, until I can guarantee that everybody that has the model has an airbrush, we won't be doing pre-highlighting. Drago, what's going on? Yeah, it's gold. It's gold. Hatter's Hobbies. Dan Senpai changed his name. What? What? Does Jen make a thumb palette soap too? It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. All right, let's do a giveaway. And then let's take a look at some whip.
I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my
Actually,
britches
we'll give
with
people a little bit of time. Sadistic, thank you for the sub. Welcome to the sub fam. That gets us 14 to 20. As soon as we hit 20 new subs every month, we go ahead and bump in another gift. So we'll be giving away another gift certificate at 20 subs. And sometimes we give away multiples per month. So thank you guys so much for all the new subs. Welcome to the family. Enjoy those emotes. Let's hear some hype and some love in chat for those people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You have a silver non-metallic metal to do. Was kind of hoping it would be silver to save you from watching the VODs. No, we just did silver not too long back, I think, right? Yeah. What were we just doing silver on?
Hey, somebody likes us.
I feel like we just did silver on something. Shelby Bug, welcome. Let's take a look at some whip right now. We're going to go over to the whip. The community gallery over at slowfusegaming.com. It is a place where you can feel free to show off anything you're working on in the hobby. ! Whip in chat. I will not be doing a refresh because we're running a little bit late. But we are going to go through and look at all this. So this is our starting point. We're going to refresh to see where to pick up after this guy. Find it. Oh, good. I see some paint-along stuff. Phantasmal. All right, let's check out all the paint-along stuff first. That's what we do. And then I'll come back and look at all the rest of this stuff.
My legs and pollute my britches with
Here we go. Here's one. Butter Knives, thank you so much for the sub. Thank you, Butter Knives. Glad to have you. Glad you found us. All right, who we got here? BVC, first time painting with a brush. Had to come in early, but you had fun. Fan-freaking-tastic, dude. Yeah, your base coat layer is looking great. You got it, right? You're going in light. Enough of the black is still coming through to force this to be a shade layer. It's not cloudy. That's exactly what we're looking for right there, man. Right? Hopefully you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing at my end, a very smooth layering of it, but still thin enough that the black is having an impact. Right? Because that's one of the good cheater things on the way that I paint, is that black primer coat is very important because it allows your first color, if you paint thin enough, to become that shadow, but also have a hue that plays with whatever colors you're painting. As opposed to black shadows, you know, because maybe you leave the panel lines black and then you paint the armor, you know, gray, and where the shadows are gets false darkness. You want to always have your shadows fall into the same hue as the color that they're shading. Make sense? Because really all it is less light hitting that area. It doesn't mean that the color of the armor is different right there. So this is perfect. Looks perfect. Smooth. Nice. I dig it. I think there was another one right after this. Fantastic. Oh, hell yeah. Look at the purples. Houdini. Nailed it. Nailed it. Look at the purple glazing he's got. Yep, you nailed it, man. Looks good. Looks really good. Again, you've nailed it. You've kept it from looking like you put a bunch of paint on here and that he's got like purple racing stripes. It's just the blue taking on a hint of purple to give it just an extra lift of color. That's it. Fantastic, man. I like it. Very good. Very good. And your blues, your light blues and stuff look really good. Now as you start moving into that lighter blue, just peaking these things, just ever so slightly finding those highlights, it's going to start jumping. I like it. Butt shot. Yep. Very good. Very good. He's smart. He doesn't have his wings attached yet, so he can see and paint all these areas a little bit better than me. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, it looks good. All through the butt area here, nice and dark. I like it. Awesome job. Do we have another one? We do. BVC again with the butt shot. Yep. Perfect, man. Looking really, really good. Have you dropped purple on yours yet? I feel like this is still just the base coat. Let me know, BVC. Ray, you haven't uploaded yet? Darg. You got tomorrow. We'll be looking at a lot of them tomorrow. The first, like last time when we did this guy, I don't think anybody put up stuff on day one, did they? Maybe you did. I feel like most people we started seeing shots on day two, and that's fine. Don't feel pressured to get photos taken quick of what you're doing to follow along. I always expect you to show me tomorrow what you did today so that you can work on it and get it right. Because you may be refining, you may be doing all that. Yeah, BVC, it looks like just the base coat. Nice and smooth, man. I dig it. Looks really, really good. Warlander, what the hell's going on, man? Back off. I feel like, what else we got? Oh yeah, we got more. Who dis? Maui blood. Maui blood. Holy hell. Dark sky. P3 Meridius blue and royal purple. P3 arcane blue. Little loose on his behind, but loving the process. It's looking good, my friend. It's looking good. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we can take a look at your purples. Find them in there. Yep. Again, really, really good job. Right? Making sure that your purple doesn't look like it accentuates the shadows, but doesn't look like you painted the shadows on. You just want it to live there as an absence of light is what it wants to feel like. You know, if you go look at something, unless there are times where shadows have very stark lines, right? If you're in like a dark area with a bright spotlight, then your shadows are going to have really hard, rigid lines. But in general, when you're outside, shadows just kind of blend in, right? They start where you don't even notice, and then all of a sudden they get dark. And so that's what I'm liking to see here, and that's what I think you've got going on. So nice. The underside looks really good. I get that hint of purple. Yeah, and even though he's using P3 paints, same thing going on here. The purple's a good choice. The blues are really electric blue. Looks good. I dig it. Yep, very good here. Darker down below because remember, we've got big wings on this guy, right? He's smart too and didn't put his wings on yet. So really nice, and you're going to have all this remain in darkness, at least a little bit. Because of the shading from the wings, the body, the butt, the quiver, all of that. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here as well. Good stuff, guys. Great work. All right, let's get back to the beginning. Let's take a look at some of this other work we got showing up here. Dirt. I feel like we missed it. Okay, no. Yeah. Here? I feel like it's here. Dry dirt, Greyfax, more or less done, though you think you need to do a bit more work on her hat. I'm digging it. I'd like to see more of the skin. Right? But that's just because of the shadow from the hat. But that's looking good. Yep. The gold and the black, always a good one. You got another picture of her cape, I feel like? Yep. Very nice. Very nice. I love the dark blood red that you've got going on the cape here. I really like that. This is going to be kind of the effect that we're going for the lacquered armor panels on our bird dude, on our Tengu. We want this kind of red. Really, really like almost ox blood feel. If you watched a few months back, probably more than that, I always say, oh, you know, like last week, and it was like 8 months ago, the ox blood leather that we did on our Eugene Chikami, right? Shigami that we did was really nice. And I love this deep red. It always works really, really well. Great job. Sabbath, Pano Order Knights just have to finish up some details on the bases. I'm digging it. A little bit too much shadow on the camera, right? So I can't tell, like I can tell you've got good layered highlights here, but I can't see where it goes because this is obviously dark artificially by the light on the desk. I'd like to see more about what you got going on midsection on the color. Good Pano blues though, and I remember you doing the faceplates instead of the white, doing them in kind of the goldish orangey yellow. I dig it. Side shot. Dude, her heels are insane. I don't know that I've ever really noticed how insane her high heels are. Like, that's nuts. She got good calves, girl. Shoot. I like it. Very good. Yeah, once you finish this up with a base, show us again. All right, Sabbath, Pano Order Nice, same thing, details on the bases. Yeah, so the one thing that I'm looking at here is as you're going through and doing your shading, your highlighting, I feel like you're going a little thick, right? Because I've got this nice color and that I really dig. Going from this bright orange into a good orangey red and then finally into a little bit darker. But I'm seeing that, right? I'm seeing that as if that is like a logo on a helmet almost, as opposed to a blended highlight. So I would say work a little bit thinner, whether it was that you drop the dark ones over the light or the light over the dark. Work a little bit thinner so you get less of a line here in between those colors and more of a blend. Because you've got all the right colors, right? I can see going from this yellowy orange here into the reddish orange here. It's just you got a hard line showing up. So if you can feather that back, you know, find a good mix of those two colors and then just lightly dump it over here, stipple it on, it'll help clean that up. Yeah, but the oranges are great, right? I love the colors. I just want to see less of this hard line. And that's just something to always practice because it's going to be true on your blues or any other colors that you do where you'll get more of a hard transition than you really want sometimes, right? Because this looks a lot smoother on the shoulder pad to me, right? I'm going from a lighter color. I can see your mid-tone here. I don't have the same hard line. I can still tell where the colors transition, but it's a little more blurred here. That's what I'd like to see up on the oranges. Good stuff. I love this. I remember you showing us this guy with the Father Knight with the greenish glow. Nice. Good stuff. I dig it. Ready to roll. Arena Rex Legio 13 starter set done. Now time for Morituri. The Morituri are fun. All of the Arena Rex stuff is fun. Like legit, all of it is great. I like these. I like these a lot. Very, very cool. Great tie-in with the blue skirts. Nice. Give us a close-up of one of this, like this guy. At some point. Like maybe tomorrow if you got to drop in like a close-up shot of just one of them. I'd like to see it. Finally feeling motivated to paint again. Huzzah! Definitely feeling like you've lost a bit of brush control. You've painted the face with war colors. Oh, you like the war colors, Duganozl. I saw you say that in chat. Any tips for making the eyebrows more eyebrowsy? I feel like in miniature there's always a struggle with eyebrows. Because if you go and you just paint eyebrows, then they always look out of place, right? Because unless you've got that hair-skin combo that some people do where it's bushy black eyebrows and pale skin, eyebrows really don't stand out a whole lot. Like, look at me right now. Like, what you guys should be seeing, right, I have eyebrows. There's something that happens. There's a little bit of shade right on the brow line that let you know a person does. Because if you shave them off from a distance, you can tell something's not right. You know, so if you don't paint them at all, I get it. But you don't want to go too dark. Generally, I take the mid-tone or the first highlight that I've used on the hair color and paint the eyebrow with that, not your dark color, right? There's only certain occasions where I'll use the darkest hair color. And like I said, it's when I'm going for like a pale skin, you know, darker. Maybe they've got a real pinched look like on the brow like I'm doing right now, and you really want that dark V, then you can go. But most times you're not. Most times you're just going to do like just the kind of, because if, you know, I guess right now, I don't know, like right here on my eyebrow, you can kind of pick up, it's just kind of this, not quite the brightest highlight color, but kind of the mid-tone that would go there. That's the easiest way. And stipple it. Don't paint a line. Go in and just use the point of your brush and just kind of make sure you put enough thin paint in there to just darken the brow line. You're fine. Entire Mac, not your work, but your model, Robbie G, painted by White Metal Games out of North Carolina. Oh, Robbie B talks about White Metal Games, doesn't he? Nice work from them. I dig it. You should be proud of that one. It's going to be a fun model to put on the table. I feel like we saw an infinitesimal amount of these guys come out when of the painting studios right as he was dropped. It's nice to continue to see him. I dig it. Sev7, more burning tree. Oh, these are the actual trees. So you've got the terrain going along with your Sylvaneth. Awesome, man. Sev7 did a wonderful Sylvaneth army where he's got smoldering tree people. Like half of them are burnt or burning. And I really dig like the kind of almost alpine or aspen look of, you know, the light tree bark, you know, almost coaxing over to burnt coals. And then smoldering on the insides is kind of cool. I dig it. These tree models are cool too. Those are the GW ones, right? Okay, we're back here. Let's go up a little bit. What else did we have in here? Ding, 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 ding. I think just this. Cosmic Cubicle. Queens of Tabletop. I always forget that's you. More, I'm going to assume that said more metalwork on the Armies on Parade board. Oh, I'm digging it. Yeah, I'm seeing the greens. I really like the way you're utilizing the green. Doesn't that work well? Right? That's just one of the age-old tricks that I've used. Greens and browns, right? And brown greens work better, right? And just a little bit of glazing in there for the shadows on golds and yellow metals goes a long way to adding, kind of like the purple on our blues, a hue shift that can also tell a story. Especially with metallics, it can be kind of a grimy, depending on how much you put, you know, kind of a tarnish, grime, grit kind of feel, depending on what color you use. But when you do it, even when you do it light like this doesn't make the gold look like it's not been taken care of. It just has a light film of color to it that I really dig. These look great. Board's gonna be awesome, man. I love it. Great stuff today, guys. Let's give some stuff away. Feel like I didn't miss anybody. Feel like we got everybody. We got everybody. All right, cool. If I missed you today, don't worry. We will get back to it mañana. It is Whip Wednesday tomorrow. We will be focused on our paint-along Bushimbo, or Buzimbo, but we will be taking a look at all Whip. So if you didn't get some stuff posted, like Ray, if you've been working on the paint-along model today, don't sweat it. We will be looking at all of that tomorrow. Make sure you, get your best work done on the blues. Post it up there. Let us see it tomorrow. All right. But now we got a giveaway. So what you're going to want to do is look down here in the bottom of the screen where the green bar was. Thanks to everybody that donated today. Mucho apreciado. Let's get rid of that. That shouldn't be there. Ray, you're going to make me refresh now, huh? You just had to do it, didn't you? All right, I'll go look at him in a second, man. Hang tight. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get a drum roll. Feel like we need a drum roll. Drum roll, please. Winner is Telemachus. What? What? Telemachus, bronze VIP. Congratulations, are you here? Yep, Telemachus says rigged. I think we need to get a lot of rigs. Telemachus rigged it from afar. Congratulations. Congrats. Killing time, damn. I guess I gotta say I'm happy for him. Ogre, take it easy, man. Have a good one. Yep, all the rigs. You guys demanded a rigged emote. Now you got it. Now it's all we see. All right, Telemachus. You know the drill, my friend. You've been here long enough. You know what comes next. For those of you who might not know what comes next, this is what we call the awkward man stare. And this is the way that we try to push a little bit of extra love out through the internet to spread positivity across the internet, from me to wherever you may be in the world. So sit back, relax, kick all family members and small pets out of the room, and stare into my eyes. Oh, that's right. First win of the day always gets a wink. So there you go, Telemachus. Congratulations. What are you going to do, man? You got to let me know. Telemachus, do you want the wheel or the wall? Wheel or the wall? No family in the room, not with you being on the road for work. That's right, man. You're supposed to be painting with us, dude. Dyke House, that's the next one, actually. Thaddeus is smart. He shields his eyes. All right, Telemachus says the wheel, so he's getting the wheel. You have two choices in this world when you win something here. You can choose the wheel, or you can choose the wall. He has selected the wheel. So our wheel has nothing but good stuff on it. It starts with $25 gift certificates. It then moves on and has $40 gift certificates, $50 gift certificates, and one elusive Heart Bomb $100 gift certificate that does get won from time to time. I'm not going to lie. People like to steal my stuff. All of these will give you gift certificates over to slowfusegaming.com. Spend to your heart's content on anything we offer over there. Paints, hobby supplies, mystery boxes, miniatures, anything you want. Good luck. Here we go, Telemachus. Oh, God. Oh, this is a good spot of the wheel to be on, actually. This ain't half bad. The hundo. 25 buckaroonies. Telemachus, congratulations. The one thing I never have is paper. How come I never have paper? I feel like this is a conspiracy. I'm going to write his name right on the thing. Telemachus. 25 buccarinos. You know the drill, Telemachus. Go ahead and somebody type exclamation point winner in chat for us. Exclamation point winner. Wiener. And Telemachus, make sure you click on that link. There we go. Thank you, Kev Rob. Click on that link. Go to the Google form that Jen has made for us. Fill it out in its entirety. Make sure that we have your email address, and we will send that $25 gift certificate out to your email. You can just click on the link. It'll take you to the store. Use it as you want. You don't have to spend it all at once. It lasts forever. Do your thing. Save up. Use it for something special later. I think most everything's in stock-ish. Something like that. And there go the brushes. Yeah, exactly, right? You can save it up until brushes are back in stock. Do whatever you want. All right, guys. So we got a lot of work done on the blues. Good amount of highlighting up. We've got a good start here with the glazing, the purples working into the shadows. I'm really comfortable with where we're at on that. Tomorrow, like I said, we will start the day off doing highlights on the blues up on the shoulders. We're going to push those a little bit brighter. Then we'll start working on the red laminated armor, which sits around his cummerbund area on the waist, a little bit on the thighs, and on the crotchal region, the tabard there. All right, so we'll be doing the reds, finish up the blues, and we'll also start working on the face and the hair. All right, so we may start the day finishing out the highlights on the blue and then go ahead and base coat all the other colors and then start working them up one by one. So make sure you tune in for that. Then, of course, Friday we'll be working on the non-metallic metal for all of the gold on his armor. So great stuff, great model. Thank you guys for tuning in. For everybody that's new, that has maybe not joined us before, has been lurking in the background, make sure to pound that follow button. Keeps us going, and we are approaching the ever-elusive 7,000 follower mark. That's awesome. Thank you guys for hanging out. All the new subs, thank you for supporting the channel the way you do. All the donations that help us do the giveaways. Again, thank you guys so much for the support. It's just awesome that you choose to spend your time with us here on the channel. Thank you so much from me and from Jen, who's off in California, having fun. Oh, geez. Never takes me anywhere. I cry now. I'm going to pass you off to Kenny, so we're going to run over and take a look at Next Level Painting, see what he's got going on Tuesday, and then, of course, following him is Rob from Spiky Bits. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. When you see the host, jump over to Kenny's channel, pop in as many emotes as you can throw at him, and let's go have some fun over there. Thank you, guys. We will catch you tomorrow. Adios. 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 I hope does that actually mean goodbye? I feel like it does. Later, gang.